All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Give me 1 second. Let's get our folks here on board and then we can get started together. All right. So, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a beautiful Tuesday evening. I'm trying to get other platforms on so that we can, you know, good. I think we're good. Good evening, Koboko. How are you, sir? Thank you very much for being here. I saw some comments earlier um, while we're trying to sort these other things. Bonfire Studios, good evening, sir. Thank you very much for your presence and thanks to everybody for joining us today. Lovely Tuesday evening. We're going to have a great time together. But before we get started, let me first thank our folks here on TikTok who have helped to push the live to 57.2k likes. I want to really thank you for your support and for helping out by power tapping and liking the live and also sharing. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I hope the audio is good because of some of the issues we had. It's important to ask from time to time just to be sure that we have good audio. All right. Shank Bomi. Shank Bomi, please can you hear me? Is it clear? Please let me know so that we can, whatever we need to do, we do. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Olumiwa, for that feedback. Thank you, Prince. Thank you, sirs. All right. So like I always do, there are people who have been power tapping a lot, and I want to acknowledge them. People like Akadol, good evening, sir. Ibo Jinodu, T Dan, Koboko. Uh, yeah, those are the names I can see right now. Thank you so much for your support. Please, if you're on TikTok, kindly power tap. Let's like the live and share as well so that we can get live on the FYP. Also, please click on this heart icon. This one. I don't know if the toes is on purpose or not. You will know later. All right, so please click on the heart icon right here and join the team. Let's drop heart means, let's drop gifts so that we can push it live to the FYP together. So let's do that to support the live. Thank you very much. Ojularia Kone, thank you, sir. And for those of us joining us on YouTube, we're glad you're here. Thank you very much for being here. Please like the live. Excuse me. Please like and share. All right. Like and share so that others will also be able to join. Like they're also streaming on Facebook and Instagram and also on Twitter. Thank you. Thank you for that gift. Thanks a lot. So if you're on YouTube, please like and share. If you're on Facebook, please like and share as well. If you're on Twitter, please. We have a lot of stuff to cover. There was something I was supposed to discuss yesterday that we couldn't get to because of time. I think we're going to start with that, and then we will come back to the news. So, like I said, some days we'll start with the news, and then we'll go to book reading. You know, but if we have a lot of books to read, or if history is the primary thing, then we'll start with that, and then go back to the news much later. So we'll go to the news much later today. So we're beginning with Atiku, Obasanjo, and Osoba in the mix. And this will take us through a number of books. I might be here for a while, so I hope we have enough time to still get to some of the news items that we have. But before we even get into all of those things, apparently Peter Obi's interview is still making the rounds. People are still talking about it. I'm seeing people calling him something. Anybody knows here? Does anybody know what they're calling him now on social media? Based on what he said, by the way. Let me see if you guys are if you are current. I know some people they are very current. So let me see. Let me confirm. I knew it. The people here, you guys are very, very current. I doff my hat. I cannot remove this hat so that my hair will not change shape. But I doff my hat for you guys. Epelesas and Mars. So yeah, they're calling him grass cutter. Um, and of course, you know why? That's because of what he said. Even though I think that people have actually done something to that tape, I mean, not like I think the tape is actually longer than that, but they cut it short and had to make a point. So he had said something to the effect. And it was asked a question, by the way. It was asked a question. Um, did you build any schools? I think it was Sean Kimberley asking the question. Did you build any schools while you were uh, uh, governor? And if you didn't, you know why? Something around something like that. And then the guy went on to say that he built modern schools. So you expect that probably he built, I don't know. You say you build modern schools, so we're expecting that maybe you build, I don't know, like multiple schools and fantastic spaces. Turns out the gentleman said in, you know what, I think you should listen to before we get into serious matters because we're going to be a bit serious for a while. I mean, news is also serious. I'm just saying before we start reading. Um, Maybe we should listen to this part of Peter B before we get into the conversation. There's a lot of things to get into, but I hope that I will not be distracted by this news because news is sweet. Just listen to what you want to go to the next one. Meanwhile, for instance, I see one here where Aisha is saying that she wasn't so pleased with the interview yesterday. It's quite interesting how Peter B is unraveling in real time. Like I said, if you're one of us, if you're from the southeast, I understand why you're supporting him sincerely, regardless of whatever you want to say to make things better. I get it. But if you're not from the southeast, I don't think. I think you should think about it again. Go, it's not worth it. With all due respect. Okay, I'm looking for the video. If I don't find it, get back to it because I wasn't even prepared to start with video. I wanted to start with book today. Okay, but since I've mentioned Peter Bill, we must find it. 1 second. Let me just use this device. The other one is too slow for me. All right, please just keep our tapping on TikTok. We're just getting started. And by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, we have these sessions every weekday, 4 p.m. We start 4 p.m. on TikTok. We usually listen to music and some of the replays before we then, you know, connect other um, platforms because of copyright issues and all that. Um, so please, welcome to class. Before we go to class, we must find this. I'll play it for you, Shan. All right, found it. But there are two, so I must find the second one. So that one later on. Someone says, Coco says, look, even let's even thank God that he's even sincere about what he did. Is he? Take a listen to this.
During your time as governor in Anambra State, can you clarify once and for all? Mr. Peter Obi, did you build any school? If not, why so? So I built more than schools. Which are the schools did you that you built? Okay, let me even start from tertiary institution. I built, if you go to today, Odumegwu University, which is our state university. Eh? There's a place called Iwaria campus. I never push it for faculty of.
So that's why they're calling him grass cutter because he said they cut the grass. But in his defense, if you listen to the other part, he said he built faculty of this and faculty of that. So I think what he's saying is that he cleared it, there was nothing there, it was barren. He got there, they cleared the entire. I don't know why he has to say I cleared the bush because, like I say, be grass cutter for real. Anyway, talk say in Kotam, said he can build faculty of this, faculty of that. That's what he's trying to say. But even that doesn't answer the question because they asked you, did you build any schools? You did not build any schools. Because interestingly, he had said this was a report from 2024, uh, Daily Post, was published April 24, 2024. I'm not going to read it because of Alhambra as governor. Peter Obi opens up. So in 2024, he had already said he did not build schools and he was explaining why he didn't build those schools. And I think you should have just, stayed with that sentiment, just to say, guys, I didn't build because of this, this, and that, rather than say I built modern schools, only for you to tell us that you're a grass cutter. The man is an interesting character. We'll come back to him much later. But let us get into the books. Let's start with actually a newspaper, which was where the whole thing started, and then from there we then go to the books that we have to read. So what's this about? The title again is Atiku Obasanjo and Osoba in the mix. So what happened was that an article was published on 20th July 2026, just last week, last week, titled "How Obasanjo Deceived Us in 2003." It was written by the former governor of Ogun State, Chief Olusegun Osoba, or Aremo Olusegun Osoba. Now, here's the thing, right? In that piece, Chief Osoba said some things about what Obasanjo did and how he quote unquote cajoled them or deceived them, using his words, the governors at the time, because again, he was governor from 1999. He was in Ogun State. There was Lam Adesina in Oyo State. There was Ade Farati in Ondo State. There was Bisia Konde in Osun State. And then, of course, you had Bat, Ashwaju Babatunde. Sorry, Ashwaju Bola Metinubu was in Lagos State. Who was in Ekiti at the time? Um, it wasn't Shegun Adebayo, was it? I think it was Adebayo's son. I think he was the one who was in Ekiti at the time. So all the governors were there, and then he claimed that Obasanjo had deceived them into voting because what happened was that the plan they had was that they were going to work. Yes, thank you, Adeni Adebayo. They were going to work with Obasanjo for his second term. That's in 2003, but they're going to retain the 6 states of the South because there were 80 states at the time. But Obasanjo was of course in PDP, so they wanted to have that kind of interesting arrangement. Turns out that Obasanjo had something else in mind. So he said something about that on the 20th of July. Obasanjo then, put out his rebuttal on July 23rd, and that then led to conversations about with Babai Atiku. So we'll put everything together, and I'm not sure we can take all three. I mean, Obasanjo. So sorry, let me say this. I don't think we can take all two at the same time. So when I say two, I mean Obasanjo and Obasanjo versus Oshoba on one hand, and then Obasanjo versus Atiku on the other hand. So let's begin with the one between Obasanjo and Oshoba for now. If we have time, we'll do it Atiku later. So let's start with the article written by Chief Oshoba. Give me a second. One second, please. And also, after this, I should also uh, get us to read books from before now, where Oshoba also made the same claims, or shall we call it allegations, right? In this book, Battle Lines. Okay, so we're going to read this as well because this goes beyond what we're going to read now. That was put out in the newspaper. Just give me a second. I want to put it up so that we can get into it. So it's titled here Battle of the Egba Titans. No, 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 I don't want this one. I want the original script that Oshoba wrote. One second, no. Okay, I found it. Show on the Leisha. You know what? I can't really see where this thing is, so I may have to. I'm just going to read one article for you, then we'll go to the book. I think that will save us time because I don't know what's happening. So I'm going to read the this day article. You know, that was published um, on the what's today's date? Today is 28, so I think it was on 24 or 25. And then we'll read this book so we can get the full gist. And then we'll now read Obasanjo's response later. More revelations have emerged from the dispute between former President Olusegun Obasanjo and former Ogun State Governor Aremo Olusegun Osoba. This is an article from um, this day newspaper. All right, it's titled "Battle of the Egba Titans." Fresh facts emerge on Obasanjo Oshoba feud. I'll read this and I'll read the Obasanjo stuff. Then we'll go to Oshoba's book. Thank you very much for the gift, Tidan. More revelations have emerged from the dispute between former President Olusegun Obasanjo and former Ogun State Governor Aremo Olusegun Oshoba over the circumstances that preceded the 2003 general election, one of the most controversial general elections of the Fourth Republic. The old dispute was reopened by the republication of excerpts from Oshoba's autobiography, Battle Lines: Adventure in Journalism and Politics, under the title How Obasanjo Deceived Us in 2003. We will read that later. Both leaders are influential Egba sons in Ogun State and key figures in Nigeria's democratic history. In the excerpts, Oshoba accused Obasanjo of persuading the leadership of Afenifere and the six governors of the defunct Alliance for Democracy (AD) to support his re-election in 2003 on the strength of promises that were allegedly abandoned once the former president secured a second term. However, Obasanjo responded to Oshoba's accusations with a strongly worded rebuttal entitled Reply to Your Inaccurate Posture: How Obasanjo Deceived Us in 2003. He rejected Oshoba's account, denied misleading the AD governors, and insisted that his fellow Egba politician lacked full knowledge of the discussions that took place at the time. So let's do it this way. I'm going to stop here right now. We'll spend some time on this book, then we'll go to Obasanjo's rebuttal. Once we're done, we'll now see what we can do with article stuff. This is history, but it's more recent history. The actors are alive, but thankfully they're also very good writers. Then they write. Obasanjo called for away. I don't think anybody comes close to Obasanjo amongst all the people who have ever led this country. In fact, not like I, let me not say I don't think there is nobody who has ever led this country who has written as much or as well as Olusegun Obasanjo. He has written more books than some professors. I'm not saying papers, though. I'm saying books, hard copy. He has written more books than many professors. This one, for instance, this my watch is a three-volume book, and this is not the only book he has written. My command, my watch. What's this other one that starts with N? I can't remember now. He has written a lot of books. So let's begin with Oshoba's book, which became the basis of the controversy. Again, recent history, but it's also important for us to be informed. Is that okay? Thank you very much. So this book is titled again, Battle Lines: Adventures in Journalism and Politics. Sorry, let me just pull down my bookmarker. All right. Battle Lines: Adventures in Journalism and Politics by Olusegun Oshoba. Thank you very much for the gift, T. Dan. We good? Questions? Apart from the Girovan Presidential Electoral College fiasco of Alliance for Democracy (AD) in Ibadan, one other factor that led to the implosion of Afenifere and the AD was the pact we had with President Olusegun Obasanjo over the 2003 presidential election. Contrary to the impression in some quarters that the AD governors were solely responsible for the support for Obasanjo in the 2003 election, the truth is that it was the collective decision of the Afenifere AD hierarchy. Let me also quickly pause to explain that Afenifere is different from AD. AD is the political party. Afenifere is the socio-cultural organization. All right, just to so in Afenifere you find people of different political persuasions. right? But largely they were 80 members. But that doesn't mean that only 80 members were in Afenifere. There were others who belonged to other political parties, but they were all part of the socio-cultural group called Afenifere. So it says here that contrary to the impression in some quarters that the AD governors were solely responsible for the support for Obasanjo in the 2003 election, the truth is that it was a collective decision of the Afenifere AD hierarchy. Everyone knew that there was no love lost between governors of Afenifere AD and President Obasanjo. Even though we did not want the relationship between the state and the federal government to be antagonistic, we were not Obasanjo's friends in any way. I never had any one-on-one private meeting with him throughout the 4 years he was in office. None of the AD governors was Obasanjo's friend. The AD governors were committed strictly to implementing the program of our party. It was the attempt by the House of Representatives under Right Honorable Gali Umar Naaba in August 2002 to impeach Obasanjo that thawed the high-sea relationship between us and Obasanjo. That created an opportunity for Obasanjo to want to embrace us too, but we didn't have a meeting with him on this crisis just to support him. Out of our own volition, we decided that the democratic experiment in the country was too fragile for the kind of shock therapy that Naba and the House of Representatives were planning to apply to it by impeaching Obasanjo. Our party caucus in the National Assembly and the leadership of the party decided to block the attempt at impeachment without any prompting from Obasanjo. I don't have to explain this one because I'm sure we all get it. Those of us who suffered under the military, unlike the likes of Naba, were conscious of the implications of what they were doing if it led to a political crisis and military intervention. Therefore, we were more concerned about forestalling another military intervention in the polity. This was why the AD caucus in the National Assembly and the leadership of the AD opposed the impeachment plot. This was not about ethnic solidarity, as many people charged. We were the ones who fought for the restoration of democracy in Nigeria. Most of those who were causing the tension, including Obasanjo himself, were the ones standing in the way of democratic aspirations of Nigerians for so many years. The experiences of many of us in the AD, including our leader, Chief Adesanya, who survived an assassination attempt, the Abiola family, and the families who lost their loved ones on the streets of the Southwest during the protest, taught us not to allow the military to ever return to power. I led a team of state governors to meet the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umar Naba. We pleaded with him to shelve the impeachment plot. After meeting with Naba, we met with Obasanjo at the villa to discuss with him too. In the course of our interaction, then Governor of Bayelsa State, Chief Dipre Alamesia, was nearly assaulted physically when he said something that was misconstrued by Obasanjo. Oga, meaning Obasanjo, we, the governors, are in charge, Alamesia said. Without waiting for Alamesia to finish his statement, Obasanjo jumped up and queried, You, in charge? Where I am the president? In charge of what? I am fully in charge. Incensed, he even moved towards Governor Alamesia in a menacing manner. I saw another terrible imitation of Obasanjo that day. What the governor of Bayelsa was going to say, I'll tell that again, what the governor of Bayelsa was going to say was that as governors, we had strong leverage over most of our state representatives in the National Assembly, and we could get them to thwart any attempt to impeach him, if only he worked with us and allowed us to do so. I had to douse the tension by intervening. I clarified Alamesia's statement by adding that those of us who suffered for democracy and someone like him who had to go to jail for some other reasons should understand. I'll take that again. I clarified Alamesia's statement by adding that those of us who suffered for democracy and someone like him who had to go to jail for some other reasons should understand why we needed to ensure the survival of democracy. I pleaded with him to show maturity as a statesman by stooping to conquer. I explained that he needed to let us take charge of the situation and douse the tension between him and the National Assembly. Okay, I understand now. You want me to stoop to conquer, Obasanjo said. That was how we managed to save an ugly situation that could have resulted in an exchange of blows between him and Alamesia. Stooping to conquer. As it turned out, unwittingly, we had handed Obasanjo a tool with which he dealt. I'll tell that again. As it turned out, unwittingly, we had handed Obasanjo a tool with which he later dealt with us too. After quote unquote stooping to conquer the National Assembly and surviving the impeachment plot, he later stooped to conquer the AD governors and Afenifere. After he survived the impeachment plot, he never showed any sense of remorse. We could not believe his new bellicose approach when, in a national broadcast, he described the impeachment plot as a joke carried too far. The attempt to impeach him eventually won him some sympathy in Yoruba land. It was after this experience that Obasanjo became a frontal attempt to woo the AD governors. I'll say that again. It was after this experience that Obasanjo began a frontal attempt to woo the AD governors. He came to Lagos to attend the convocation at the University of Lagos and then invited all the AD governors to a meeting later in the night, same day. Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Lagos was the contact between us and Obasanjo over the arrangements for the meeting. We met him in the old office of the head of state at Dodam Barracks. The only person who accompanied him to the meeting was the Director of State Security Services, SSS, Colonel Kayode Are. At the meeting, he directly requested support from all the 6 AD governors. He said he wanted an understanding between us and himself because he had faced some serious challenges that were likely to create some upheaval in the political terrain and in the country at large. Therefore, he wanted an understanding and a working relationship with us. We analyzed the situation in the country and told him a few home truths. Firstly, we told him that even though we were heads of government, we had leaders and elders in the party that he must discuss with if he needed any kind of understanding with us. Secondly, we wondered what would be the basis of our understanding with him when his term was coming to an end with no prospect of securing his party's ticket for a second term. By the way, all this just to tell us that in his first term, between 1999 and 2003, in his first term, Obasanjo was going to be impeached, and there was impeachment proceedings that were about to begin in the House of Representatives at the time. And Naba, that we mentioned earlier, was the speaker at the time. Okay, so the party wasn't going to give him a second term. That's what they're trying to say, or at least give him the ticket to run again. Secondly, we wondered what would be the basis of our understanding with him when his term was coming to an end with no prospect of his securing his party's ticket for a second term. We made it clear that a working relationship between the two groups was beyond us. A decision of that magnitude would have to be reported to our Afenifere leaders, who had the authority to take a final position on it. We immediately reported the proceedings to Chief Abraham Adesanya, who convened a meeting where it was debated with serious reservations amongst the leadership about fraternizing with Obasanjo. The Afenifere and the AD leadership were not going to give their heart and soul to support Obasanjo's second term ambition without extracting some major political commitment from him. A meeting was held in Lagos where the conditions for negotiating with Obasanjo were agreed upon. After the meeting at his home, Adesanya he, he led a team with Afenifere Charter of Demand to Ota to discuss with Obasanjo. 1 second. And they said Atiku was the one pushing all this. Yes, there's an Atiku aspect, there's an Atiku angle to it. I'm trying not to go into it because we'll still discuss Obasanjo versus Atiku later. So let's continue with this one. A meeting was held in Lagos where the conditions for negotiating with Obasanjo were agreed upon. After the meeting at his home, Adesanya, he led a team with a very charter of demands to Ota to discuss with Obasanjo. The delegation to Ota included Chief Ayo Adebanjo, Senator Femi Okoromu, and Cornelius Adebayo. Okoromu and Adebayo were mandated to speak on behalf of AD and Afenifere. Adesanya called and asked me to join them at Obasanjo's Ota farm from my station in Abeokuta. The conditions presented to Obasanjo, amongst others, were the restructuring of the Nigerian Federation, devolution of power, including moving some items from the exclusive to the concurrent list, and ensuring fiscal federalism. When was this? This was before the 2003 election. No? Okay, again, Yoruba elders have always, been about this. So even when Obasanjo was trying to work with them, these were the demands they had. I'm going to read the demands one more time. The conditions presented to Obasanjo, amongst others, were the restructuring of the Nigerian Federation, devolution of power, including moving some items from the exclusive list or exclusive list to the concurrent list, and ensuring fiscal federalism. Obasanjo was to organize a credible and transparent national census. I'll tell that again. Obasanjo was to organize a credible and transparent national census. Merits must be followed alongside federal character and quota system in the recruitment to federal positions across the country. Obasanjo assured us that he identified with them. He explained that he had even started implementing the issue of merit in federal appointments indirectly through the privatization of many public enterprises, which were run for many years without respect for merit. With the privatization and the enthronement of a culture of merit, he expected that many Nigerian professionals abroad would return home to run the privatized enterprises. He affirmed that privatization was part of enthroning meritocracy. Obasanjo said arrangements had been completed to ensure a genuine, transparent, and acceptable headcount. He told us the satellite mapping of all Nigerian cities, towns, and villages was in the making. Even without a headcount, he explained that with satellite mapping, it was possible to count the number of houses everywhere in the land, and with that, get a rough idea of how many people live in the houses in the country. He said he would lay the issue of census to rest in the second term. Through Google, the days of census inflation were over. That's Google, the search engine. On fiscal federalism, he said the federal government would respect and obey the decision of the court in the case instituted by Lagos and other states against the federal government. On the whole, Obasanjo sounded so eloquent and convincing. At the end of the meeting, we drove to the Gateway Hotel, Ota, where I had arranged dinner for the leaders. It was also the place to debrief ourselves of what we gained from meeting with Obasanjo. Chief Adebanjo was the major speaker. I sincerely cannot believe that Obasanjo has become such a changed man, he said. I am surprised but happy that he is ready to take fundamental actions to restructure Nigeria in his second term in office. Nyemo. Sorry, guys. That was the impression most of us took away from the meeting. Consequently, we agreed to support him for the 2003 presidential election. We decided not to present a presidential candidate for the AD, in spite of resistance from some Afenifere leaders. It was later that we realized that we had been fooled. Obasanjo merely played along with us and ended up deceiving us by telling our leaders what he knew they wanted to hear, but what didn't come from his heart. Apart from reaching out directly to the AD governors, Obasanjo also reached out to other sources close to the governors to reinforce his professed desire for cooperation. From Ogun State, he enlisted all manner of groups, religious, traditional, professional, communal, and familial, to pile pressure on me, his fellow Ogun indigene. Obasanjo pressures me through royal fathers, friends, and groups. The then Oni of Ife, Obashijo Ade Olubushe II, was the first to discuss Obasanjo's re-election plans with me. He was superlative in his presentation. Quote, the Yoruba nation has an assignment for you, end of quote, he said. Yorubas don't want disintegration, they want continuity and a smooth change of pattern from one civilian government to another. Then the real message, we want your cooperation and assistance. I responded that his message and idea were laudable, but I was only a member of a large team with which I needed to discuss the subject. Alaki of Egbaland, late Oba Oyebadeli Kwede, was next. At a meeting in his bedroom one night, he told me, waxing sentimental, Akinrogun, this is where I will breathe my last to join my ancestors. Before I answer the call to transition, I want you to join the Egbas in helping our Jagomolo of Egbas, General Obasanjo, to execute a successful movement from one civilian to another. Oba of Lagos, Oba Adeyinka Oyekan, a distant cousin and the grand patron of our family, Osoba George, also waded in. So did the then Ataoja of Oshobo, Oba Yola Matomi, with whom I grew up in Oshobo. He threw his weight in to plead Obasanjo's cause. The most compelling of all was from the paramount ruler of Ijebuland, Oba Dr. Sikiru Adetono, a respected royal father in Yorubaland. Having been on the throne since 1960, Aujale is deep and experienced. He can be firm and uncompromising in any noble cause he supports. Aujale had been immense. Aujale had been an immense source of inspiration to me, both in and out of office as governor. He also provided succor when I was underground during Abacha's regime. I'll tell that again. He also provided succor when I was underground during Abacha's reign. His daily telephone calls with prayers made my travails in hiding bearable and fortified my resolve to bear it through. A fair minded leader who hates injustice in any form, he could be radical in search of justice. The Aujale too did not wholly trust Obasanjo, having had a testy relationship with him. I remember one incident in Ijebu after the church service for the 80th birthday ceremony of Chief Abraham Adesanya in July 2002. The Aujale and I were riding in the same vehicle with Obasanjo and Chief Bode George when the Aujale told Obasanjo frontally, quote, "In the past, I could swear by you, but in recent times, I no longer trust you, nor can I put a bet on any promise you make." End of quote. Rather than get offended, Obasanjo simply laughed and said, "Kabiyesi, Kabiyesi, that is not true." In his autobiography, the Aujale would call Obasanjo a Judas. By the way, the autobiography is here, but let's not open it. We'll have a session to discuss Aujale's autobiography. But what Toshoba is saying here is true because the book is also here, so we can confirm. But I don't want to start moving stuff. Let's just continue. So it says in his autobiography, let me just show you the autobiography just in case you're interested and you want to order. 1 second. Give me a second. I'm going to just get it for you. All right. This is the autobiography. 1 second. Oh, Jale. That's the autobiography that Chief Olusegun Osoba is referring to. So um, we don't want to read this now, but one of these days we will visit and read from uh, the from our Jale's book. All right. So if you want it, you can order on Redomi Books on Telegram. Let's go back to Battle Lines. In his autobiography, the Aujale would call Obasanjo a Judas. A royal father who knows Obasanjo that much would therefore not throw his goodwill in Obasanjo's favor frivolously. Sometime in 2002, the Aujale invited me to his place for a heart-to-heart discussion. My Aremo, he started. We all know Obasanjo's terrible weaknesses, but we have to overlook those so as to ensure a smooth civilian to civilian transition bereft of bloodshed and the subsequent collapse of the Republic as it happened in 1966 and 1983. In light of this, it is better for us to support Obasanjo and let him finish his second term and go. I want to broker relative peace between you and Obasanjo. We debated the suggestion at length, after which Awujale volunteered to arrange a private flight from Ibadan to Abuja for a meeting with President Obasanjo. We set out early on Saturday morning for the presidential villa, where we had breakfast with the president, followed by a meeting in his inner study at the villa. The Awujale started the meeting by joking that as an Ijebu king, he should not be interceding between two Egba men. He then turned to me, "Mr. Governor, do you have any presidential ambition now?" "No," I replied. 1 second. Someone says there's no audio on YouTube. 1 second, please. Just a second, just to be sure. That would be weird. If there's no audio, that would be very weird. Just a second, please. Let me just confirm. Just a second, just to be sure. Papa, there's audio now. That would be weird. told you now. YouTube is good. Please check your device. Okay. Georgia is good. Let's go back just a bit. The Aujale started the meeting by joking that as an Ijebu king, he should not be interceding between two Egba men. He then turned to me, Mr. Governor, do you have any presidential ambition now? No, I replied. He then turned to Obasanjo for his own royal quiz. Mr. President, are you interested in contesting to be governor of Ogun State? God forbid, Obasanjo replied, in what looked to him like an abomination. How can I descend from being president to become a state governor? Like King Solomon attempting to settle a dispute between two people. There are of us. So what do both of you have against each other? Matter with his jocular approach. Ordinarily, as Awujale, I should not be happy to have an Egba as president and another Egba as governor of Ogun State. Yet, I cannot understand why two Egbas who have the two most important positions available for people from Ogun State will not be at peace with each other. Let's give it to experienced royal fathers. The wisdom with which these elders and custodians of traditions, such as the Awujale, put these things never ceases to amaze me. They have a way of dousing tension with their wisdom, experience, style, and succinct manner of presenting their arguments. Even if you are not totally convinced about what they want you to do, the manner of presentation would make it almost impossible to demur. Obasanjo responded to Diawujale by saying that I was keeping my distance from him, which he claimed was affecting the federal government's interest in Ogun State. According to him, it was also affecting Ogun State's access to federal assistance. I expected him to be meeting me regularly with requests for Ogun State, but the governor is too arrogant to do so, he said. Well, my relationship with you has nothing to do with pride, I responded. If it has nothing to do with pride, then what is responsible? The president asked. The thing is, we belong to two different ideological persuasions and political parties. Secondly, I let him know that even if I needed any extra budgetary assistance, it was usually not worth the trouble because of what the state would get by the time elements at the federal level and their political bosses creamed off their usual percentage from it. Yet, they will record the full amount in the books. This is a potentially destructive path that I couldn't follow. I learned a lot of lessons from fellow governors of the class of 1992 who ran into problems after Abacha kicked us out over extra budgetary allocations from the federal government that were not delivered in full to them. In any case, why should I lobby you before you can do whatever you feel like doing for your home state? I asked the president. I am doing my part as governor. I challenge you to do your part, Mr. President. The discussion was brutally frank, and Obasanjo seemed not to be in a hurry to let us go. But the pilot eventually sent word that there was no night landing facilities at the Ibadan airport and that we needed to leave soon. The preceding discussions and rapprochement between us probably weighed on the president's mind when he paid a state visit to us in Abeokuta in October 2002. As to be expected, the government of Ogun extended to him due courtesies. He was impressed. On his return to Abuja, he wrote a warm letter conveying his appreciation. Quote, I was impressed by your administration's efforts towards the rehabilitation of infrastructure, especially in roads and water supply. And I note with satisfaction the encouragement you have made in private investment in Ogun State, he wrote. End of quote. He urged us to pay more attention to the activities of Ogun Oshun water irrigation scheme and promised to accelerate work on the paper mill in Iwokmi. Let me reiterate my commitment to get Iwokmi paper mill operational within the shortest possible time, he promised. Regrettably, he did not match his words with action as the paper mill, the only federal government project in Ogun State, remained comatose throughout the remaining 5 years of his tenure. There were others who also intervened on behalf of Obasanjo. They included the elite of Egba land and Yoruba land in general. For instance, the Hope family, led by Chief Debo Akonde, also supported Obasanjo's second term. They came to Abeokuta to plead with me. Members of the Hope family included an old classmate, Chief Rashid Badamosi, and other successful professionals like Chief Olorun Shoke, Chief don't have. I'll take that slowly, please. I need to drink some water. It was not that I didn't have my doubts or that I didn't know President Obasanjo and his character enough. I had abundant experience of his character through previous personal encounters. In 1979, he stopped my appointment as managing director of the Sketch. Another example was when I was campaigning to be governor in 1990. A campaign of calumny was mounted against me that I had sold my Egba origin by claiming to be a Kwaran in my desperation to be chief executive of Nigerian Herald. General Obasanjo, who as chief of staff approved and caused the appointment to be announced on radio, deliberately did not raise a voice to correct the misrepresentation. Then Akpeno, then Akpeno Egba chief Toye Koka was the one who gave me a hint that Obasanjo was present when the matter was discussed by some elders in Egba. Knowing that Obasanjo had full knowledge of the circumstances that took me to Kwara, I was disappointed that he did not clarify the issue at a meeting of Egba chiefs. At the earliest opportunity, I confronted him in the presence of Chief Kola Olumide with evidence of his instruction in writing on my appointment at the Herald. In spite of all this, I went ahead with the arrangement because I was convinced that we needed a successful civilian to civilian election for democracy to survive. Hints of what lay in store for us came to me from many sources. For instance, as we were coming out of one of the meetings at Obasanjo's lodge in his Ota farm, Dr. Mololu Olunloyo, former governor of Oyo State, who was waiting to see Obasanjo, called me aside and whispered in my ears, quote, "Be careful. You and Lam Adesina are being spied upon. They are monitoring your activities as governor. Be careful, and before you reach any agreement with Obasanjo, think twice and think well." It was the second time within a month that Olunloyo was warning me about Obasanjo. He had earlier done so at the 70th birthday celebration for Senator B. Drojaye in Ijebu-Igbo. Olunloyo's wife, Ronke, is from Ijebu-Igbo and a distant relation of Senator Drojaye. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, Chief Wole Olanipekun, SAN, came to Abeokuta in the heat of the 2003 election campaign to warn me to be wary of any collaboration with President Obasanjo. Many long-standing friends like General Emmanuel Abisoye expressed serious reservations. My son, Olumide, never believed in the alliance. He exhibited his revulsion openly on December 26, 2002, when Obasanjo barged in on me and my family to pay an unsolicited Christmas courtesy call at on the Osoba family. We received him at 9 a.m. in our house in Abeokuta. On hand were Bere, Fadekemi, Oluyinka, Toby, and Prince Shegun Adeshegun. Olumide, who drove in from Lagos that morning, refused to join the welcoming party. Noticing Olumide's absence, Obasanjo requested to wait for him to come down. Olumide agreed but requested to take his bath first. Obasanjo still accepted to wait. Obasanjo chose to address the family standing, having rejected my offer to speak while sitting. Obasanjo pleaded with my family to see his and mine as one united family. He asked that we should treat all the altercation between me and him as purely political and not personal. When Olumide prostrated in Yoruba culture to respond on behalf of the Oshobas, Obasanjo lifted him to address the House standing. He thanked us, Obasanjo, for the honor and wished him a peaceful and successful tenure in office. We both, we both left for his Olushomi family house for his family Christmas party. While there, he requested to have lunch in my house before returning to Ota. I had to mobilize Gateway Hotel to help for the unscheduled lunch. 2 weeks before the first election, Papa Adesanya summoned us to Ota for another meeting with Obasanjo. Again, Papa Adesanya was the leader of Afenifere at the time. Okay, 1 second. I think I need to change the audio source. Meanwhile, I hope you are enjoying the reading. I know we're used to talking about 1940s and 50s and 60s, sometimes 70s, but now you're hearing 2002. It's history too. Yesterday is actually history if you think about it. So you're enjoying it. Thank you, Mr. Leko. Any other person? I hope you're enjoying the reading. 1 second, let me change the audio source. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Just a second. I'm going to switch the audio source and then we're going to continue reading. Real Quam on Instagram. Thank you very much for joining us. So we just started streaming on Instagram, and it's looking nice. It's looking nice. It's looking nice. All right, let's do it this way. 1 second, please. Mr. V, I see you. Good to see you. All right, let's get back to this. So we're reading Battle Lines, Adventures in Journalism and Politics by Chief Olusegun Osoba. We're reading this because of the altercation, well, the exchange of words, I should say, in the newspapers between the former governor of Ogun State, Olusegun Osoba, and the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. Interestingly, both of them are Sheguns. So what happened was that recently, just last week, um, portions of this book was published in newspaper titled "How Obasanjo Deceived Us in 2003," talking about how Obasanjo played the AD governors at the time. Someone said, "Who will share each other?" I mean, both of them will not share each other. They will be, but both of them will be Ashegun like Barolo. Anyway, so they published parts of this right in the paper. Obasanjo read that and then provided a rebuttal. But instead of reading just that bit that you have what happened, again, like I said, it's also history, and it's important for us to be knowledgeable about every part of our history. So let's continue. So we're reading Battle Lines, Adventures in Journalism and Politics by Olusegun Osoba. All right, let's continue. 2 weeks before the first election, Papa Adesanya summoned all Water for another meeting with Obasanjo. Some independent witnesses were also invited. They included the Awujale of Ijebuland, Oba Sikiru Adetono, who came with Oba Adekoya Dagborewe of Idowa. Also invited were Bishop Emmanuel Bonigi. I love that man. Also invited were Bishop Emmanuel Bonigi of the Anglican Communion and Bishop Ayoladi Bolu of the Methodist Church. I love him as well. I love all of them. To our shock, Chief Adesanya opened fire at Obasanjo, shooting straight from the hips. Quote, "Mr. President, we hear you are planning to use military tactics to ambush us during the election." End of quote, he said. "From our intelligence gathering, we have learned that you are planning to run us all aground and rig us out of power in the southwestern states. By doing that, you would have betrayed our trust and support for you." Thank you very much for the gift, Yomi and Tidan. Thank you so much. By doing that, you would have betrayed our trust and support for you. Bishop Bonigi also added credence to Adesanya's information, firing more shots in the direction of Obasanjo. "Mr. President, what Chief Adesanya is saying is true," he said. "We also hear that your people are in Ondo State, training some people who are expected to wear fake police uniforms on the day of the election with a view to rigging the elections for the PDP, your party." A visibly angry Obasanjo had to fire back, asking the bishop, "What's your source of information?" "My source of information? I got the intelligence information from my friend, Governor Adefarati." "Governor Adefarati is lying," Obasanjo said. "He is not lying. We grew up together from childhood. Adefarati has not been known to be a liar," Bishop Bonigi replied. The whole meeting was running into stormy waters with the exchanges between Obasanjo and Bonigi. I swear to God that the allegations are on. By the way, let me just pause to say this. If you're a Christian and you're looking for the way Christians can function in policies, please read about Bishop Bonigi and his work with Abenifere and YCE, Yoruba Council of Elders. And Babani, you know, the man fearing. He's a pastor. Pastor is good to be a pastor, but it's not like being a minister and be denigrate Yoruba people because you're trying to please some sections of Nigeria. That's just absolute nonsense. Anyway, beyond that is that they are accusing Obasanjo of what they heard he was going to do during the 2003 elections. The whole meeting was running into stormy waters with the exchanges between Obasanjo and Bonigi. I swear to God that the allegations are untrue and unfounded, Obasanjo said. I can never be part of such a betrayal. My president, or Mr. President, I still insist you are deceiving us. Additionally, chipped in. And I know that no betrayer would go unpunished. As our people say, he who betrays the earth would end up being swallowed by the earth. It was the intervention of the Awujale that calmed the frayed nerves. He said that what was needed was for the president to assure us about what he intended to do to allay the fears of the Afenifere stroke AD leaders. This matter before us is more than just throwing insults around, the Awujale said. What we need is for the president to explain and convince us about what he would do to prevent rigging and violence during the elections and ensure that we are guaranteed free and fair elections. He should explain what actions he intends to take on all allegations made against him and his men. Bishop Ladibulu also spoke in the same vein to calm things down, adding that any form of rigging, cheating, and lying is against God's wish and is punishable by God. Obasanjo jumped at that opportunity to make a solemn promise that he would do everything possible to make sure that the elections were conducted well to the satisfaction of all parties. It was on this note that the meeting ended. Events subsequently proved Adesanya right. Before we held the first round of elections, which was for the National Assembly, by the way, I'm reading Olusegun Osoba's, perspective. I'll read Obasanjo's perspective later. You will now make up your mind, or we will discuss whatever we think happened. Events subsequently proved Adesanya right. Before we held the first round of elections, which was for the National Assembly, the results had been forged. Throughout the Southwest in particular, and generally nationwide, the PDP had brazenly manipulated the elections. Senate seats were being won and lost in rapid succession. I know of two examples of noted physicians from Adamawa and Kaduna states who, being honorable men, had considered defeat only for their names to be announced later on radio as winners. The gubernatorial and presidential elections were to follow. In the days after the National Assembly election, I had information from highly placed sources in the intelligence community and the Electoral Commission that the results, quote unquote, of the gubernatorial and presidential elections in Ogun State, prepared by a professor from Ekiti State, were also ready. Fictitious figures were already available to declare the gubernatorial candidate of the PDP in Ogun State, Benga Daniel, as winner. My then current and former deputies, Alhaji Benga Kaka and Alhaji Rafiu Ogunleye, who went for a pre-election meeting at Ogun State INEC, reported that some people in INEC revealed to them confidentially that the elections were, quote, a foregone conclusion, end of quote. Kaka and Ogunleye tried to persuade me to withdraw from the race. I rejected their advice, even though I accepted the conclusion about what was in store for me and our party. 1 second, please. All right, let's continue. I'll go back just a bit. Kaka and Ogunleye tried to persuade me to withdraw from the race. Who is me? Me is Governor Olusegun Osoba, or Aremo, as we now call him. Kaka and Ogunleye tried to persuade me to withdraw from the race. I rejected their advice, even though I accepted the conclusion about what was in store for me and our party. I was able to confirm from other sources the planned rigging of the elections and all the shenanigans planned by the PDP in Ogun State. Yet, I went ahead with our preparations for the elections. I instructed party chiefs to pay our party agents and pay for the necessary logistics. Some of them asked me why I was, quote unquote, wasting money in what was a lost battle. I told them that if we don't put all our energies into the election, some will turn around to say, if only we had done this or that, we would have won. By 8 p.m. on the election day, a total of 1,360,170 votes had been announced for Obasanjo. Benga Daniel was declared winner of the gubernatorial election with 449,335 votes. The sheer shamelessness of the PDP and its candidates was revealed even by the Federal Appeal Court. In the judgment, the judges cancelled Ogun State results and noted that the presidential election received 615,873 votes over and above the votes cast for all the governorship candidates. In other words, if you added all the governorship candidates from all the parties together, you would have to still add 615,873 votes to those votes in order to reach what the president got. So the question is, where did the president get that one from? The judges queried the yawning gap between the votes recorded for Obasanjo and those assigned to gubernatorial candidates of all the parties in the state. The court concluded that the difference was indefensible, especially when both the presidential and gubernatorial elections were held simultaneously. In the lead judgment, Justice F.F. Tabai even added that all allegations in Ogun State were criminal in nature. They range from violence, fingerprinting, official intimidation, bias, and falsification of results. Waziri Onibiyo Adio, a perceptive investigative journalist, was the first to raise a stark question on the criminally rigged elections in Ogun State. Adio, presently the Executive Secretary of Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, wrote a story reproduced below in This Day on April 25, 2003. What happened in Ogun polls? A study of results released by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, seems to have supported allegations of irregularities in last weekend's polls. The result from Ogun State, the president's home state, shows a wide discrepancy between the number of votes cast by the gubernatorial and presidential candidates. The total number of votes cast for all the presidential candidates exceeded that of the gubernatorial candidates by 618,071 votes. This staggering difference has set many eyebrows askew. During the elections, voters were given two ballot papers, the shorter one for the gubernatorial poll and the longer for the presidential. From results cross-checked on INEC's website yesterday, 1,576,875 names were on the voters' register in Ogun State. The total number of ballots cast, both valid votes and rejected ballots for the gubernatorial candidates, was 747,296. However, the total number of votes cast in the presidential category was 1,365,367, a difference of 618,071. Out of the total votes cast, President Olusegun Obasanjo polled 1 million. You see why I was silent. You will see it now. Out of the total votes cast, President Olusegun Obasanjo polled 1,360,170, which is 99.92%, while General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, scored 680, 0.05%. The discrepancy in the figures has thrown up a number of questions. Is it that thousands of voters in Ogun State were not interested in who becomes their governor? Is it that they were only interested in returning their kinsman to the presidency? Did thousands of voters refuse to take the ballot paper for the gubernatorial candidates? If so, what did they do with the ballot papers? Did they drop them at the polling stations, or did they take them home? Or did they forget to vote in the gubernatorial category? Were there more than 600,000 voided yet unrecorded votes in the gubernatorial category? Are these figures from actual voting, or are they cooked figures? Is there an honest mistake somewhere, or a deliberate manipulation of figures? These and many other questions are crying for answers. It is also noted, however, that though Ogun State posted the most staggering difference in the votes cast simultaneously, the trend is not peculiar to it. In 10 other states, with full results on the INEC website, the differences range from 1,000 to 94,000. In Adamawa State, the difference is 94,143. In Akwa Ibom, 68,861. In Ebonyi, 1,457. In Edo, 24,197. In Ekiti, 2,675. In Enugu, 70,922. In Jigawa, 55,740. In Kwara, 3,312. In Oyo, 46,336. And in Niger, 31,850. Whether they are in a few thousands or in hundreds of thousands, the differences points to the fact that something is amiss somewhere. There are also questions about Rivers and Bayelsa states, where the president and incumbent state governors scored almost 100% with 97% turnout. This reminds us of elections held in Saddam's Iraq. The expired maximum dictator Saddam Hussein almost always scored 99% in a vote, where turnout is akin to that of Rivers State. This leaves several questions unanswered, especially when some local government areas like Brass recorded 100% turnout and 99% vote for the incumbent. Bell. The doubts engendered by the turnout in Rivers, which the PDP National Chairman Chief Aljogbe called historic, cast a question mark on the credibility of the elections. Already, the president's opponents have alleged gross manipulation of the polls. Both local and international observers have complained of lapses, irregularities, and manipulation in a few states. According to the European Union Observer Group, the elections were simply not credible. One of the notable political... So that's the end of the article by Waziri Adio. Let's continue with the book itself by Olusegun Osoba. One of the notable political journalists and columnists of that era, Eziuche Ubani of this day, also commented on the Ogun State elections of 2003 in his column on Friday, December 24, 2004, after the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Ubani asserted that the tribunal had, quote, confirmed to the world a truth that all know, that the 2003 general elections were marred by irregularities. All sorts of malfeasance and criminality, as the justices confirmed, were deployed to return President Olusegun Obasanjo to a second term. Continued Eziuchi Ibani. Stalwarts of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who owed their positions in the party and government to the massive fraud, were relieved by the judgment, which confirmed Obasanjo's victory in the presidential election, but they were nonetheless worried. What ruined it for them was the confirmation that the president's men caused to be awarded to him 600,000 votes that were non-existent in the voters' register, and that the presidential poll in Ogun State, the president's home state, where he supervised during the polls, was unanimously annulled by the justices. It sounds incredible, but that is the truth. 600,000 votes were manufactured and added to the tally that returned the president to office. That is to say that our commander-in-chief benefited from a vote fraud that took place in his home state. The implications are very grave, for it impairs the moral foundations on which the power of the president to wield the red ink and deploy troops is built. The perceptive journalist asks very critical questions about what happened in Ogun State and Olusegun Obasanjo's role in the electoral theft. This requires a long quotation. Here we go. What did the PDP do? Prior to the polls, the authorities of the University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, UNAB, now FUNAB, were instructed to forward a list of lecturers who would act as returning officers. In the past, university lecturers were custodians of social morality, but not anymore. And these persons lived up to the infamy of the generation. They were quote-unquote instructed that since president is a son of the soil, he needed all the advantage from the soil. It was decided that the 1.3 million votes will put him on a good pedestal. Again, I'm reading from Osoba's perspective, and he's also quoting some other people. This one is Ubani. When it's time, we'll read Olusegun Obasanjo's perspective as well. Then you will decide. You make up your mind. That's a better way to read these things, okay? Let's continue. So it's talking about what happened with lecturers that were called in UNAB. Okay, and they're told that since Obasanjo was quote-unquote the son of the soil, he needed all the advantage from the soil. It was decided that the 1.3 million votes will put him on a good pedestal. The results were prepared in advance before they headed to the local government collation centers. The large number of soldiers ensured no one had access to them at the collation centers. But as usual in fraud, but as usual in all fraud, there is always a loophole. That should be A or A. One of you parenthesis. Let's just read it as a loophole. But as usual in all fraud, there's always a loophole, a clue that will give away the plot. Since they prepared the president's results ahead, they failed to realize that they would also have to deal with the result of the governorship polls, which held at the same time. They wrote the results but forgot that what was returned for the president ought to mathematically tally with what was returned as total votes for the governorship candidates, Benga Daniel, Segun Osoba, and four others. That was their first error. The second error flows logically from the first. The 1.3 million voters returned were far in excess of the number in the voters' register. What that figure suggests is that the state recorded about 120% voters turnout. There's also another error. Those who conjured the figures must have been blind to statistics and demography. The population of Ogun State is 2.5 million. To say that 1.3 million people voted means more than 50% of the entire population is above 18 years. This narrative gives a clue to who are responsible for the fraud in Ogun State. The president was in Ogun State all through the polls. All this happened under his watch. As beneficiary of the malfeasance, it is not on record that anybody had been queried for the embarrassment. Again, what happened in Ogun happened in so many other states. Eziuche Ubani concluded poignantly, on whose shoulder is the moral burden. I'll tell that again. Eziuche Ubani concluded poignantly, on whose shoulder is the moral burden hanging now? Is it Chris Ngige of Anambra State, or the president, who a superior court has declared that all the votes he got in Ogun were obtained by fraud and were annulled? Nobody will answer this question, and nobody will resign. But we know for sure on which page of history this ignoble records will be written. Ezioche's last sentence may well translate into a most fitting epitaph for Obasanjo's role in Nigeria's democratic history. The word ignoble will stand out in that epitaph. So that's that from Olusegun Osoba. Now let's read Obasanjo's rebuttal. What I like about Olusegun Osoba's writing, he wasn't just telling you his own opinion. He's telling you about people who were there, what they said, who was in the room. So it's not just about this is what I'm saying. It's about you can also confirm from these people. That's one. Number two, he's also quoting others who wrote about the incident or about the election and what he called the rigging. I'm saying what he called because I want to appear fair. But we know this also repeated itself in 2007. It was so bad that even President Umaru Yar'Adua admitted that the elections that brought him in were marred with irregularities. Give me a second. Let me find you Obasanjo's report. One second, please. All right. Um, so let's read from this day. Okay. Give me a second. I'm thinking maybe we should just read the letter itself rather than read the reportage of it. Give me a second, please. Let me just get you the letter itself. So that way we're reading from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So, like I said, Obasanjo had written to Osoba on the 23rd, then he wrote to Atiku on the 25th. And then we're going to read both and then maybe even listen to other things much later. So, let's begin with this from the cable. It was published by many newspapers, by the way, just 5 days ago. But I think it's good for us to read this particular one. Obasanjo to Osoba, you lost in 2003 genuinely. I wasn't part of your arrangement with Atiku. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has dismissed a recent claim by Olusegun Osoba, former governor of Ogun, accusing him of deceiving leaders of the Alliance for Democracy (AD) ahead of the 2003 general election. Osoba had alleged that Obasanjo deceived AD governors and Afenifere leaders during political negotiations preceding the 2003 elections. In a letter issued in Abeokuta, Ogun State Capital on Thursday, titled "Reply to Your Inaccurate Position." You know what? Let me read the letter. 1 second. I want the letter, not anybody telling me about what he said. I thought I had it here earlier. Just a second, please. Remember, there's something close that we can read. I think we should read this one from Vanguard. All of them are reporting it, to be honest. I thought I had it earlier, but I think this will also help us because that's the best we can get for now. Until we're able to get something like the book I was referring to yesterday, that was written by the Premium Times journalists. Letters that Obasanjo was, writing to other people. So maybe when we get there, we'll read something like that. But let's go back to what we're reading. Then, if we have to, we'll also read Vanguard and other papers. But it's essentially the same thing. Okay. So it says here. In a letter issued in Abeokuta, Ogun State Capital on Thursday, titled "Reply to Your Inaccurate Posture: How Obasanjo Deceived Us in 2003," Obasanjo said Osoba got many things wrong in his article published in the Legal Observer on July 20, 2026. Your presentation in your write-up was far-fetched, to put it mildly, Obasanjo wrote. But before I go further, I take strong and serious objection to your calling me a deceit, because I deceived nobody. I always presented my case, and in all issues as I had them and as I understood them, no matter whose ox is gored. There were issues you did not know or understand because, as you pointed out, they were above your head. They were handled by your elders in the Alliance for Democracy Party, AT Party, and Afenifere. And there were issues that you governors of the Southwest kept away from me, which normally should be discussed or raised with me, but were raised or discussed somewhere else. I would not say that you are diabolical or deceitful. You chose what you would do, and you did what you chose. Others could also choose differently. The former president said after he was released from prison, many people who visited to congratulate him urged him to return to government. I paid no attention initially because I had a serious family matter, my children's schools to attend to, he said. The first group was led by Lawan Katsina to me on my Ota farm. I received them, thanked them, and promised to think about their invitation. He said the second group was led by late SM Afolabi, who was deputy governor to the late Obalaige, while the third was led by Martin Square, adding that the last two groups were Yoruba led. The former president said he told them that the circle needed to be widened and enlarged. I believe that the two groups included Afenifere and non-Afenifere. You did not know that I had these approaches, contacts, or invitations, he said. Obasanjo said based on the approaches, he embarked on consultations across the southwest, southeast, and north. Obasanjo said following the consultations, he decided to take interest in party formations and the role Bolage was playing at the time. People's Democratic Party, PDP, attracted my attention and my interest, and I was being regularly posted, he recalled. After the formation of the parties, I formally joined PDP. I continued my consultation and campaigns at the same time. The former president said politics for him is about the welfare and well-being of the people and should not be driven by personal bitterness or acrimony. 1 second. Obasanjo added that Osoba's decision to play politics differently should not lead to hatred, enmity, or antagonism. Quote, "It is a matter of ideas, policies, competition, and choice," he said. The former president said his political philosophy was built around constant communication and expanding relationships, adding that he believed adversaries could be turned into friends. You know what? I have the full text I was looking for, so let me just read that one. I usually don't like they said. So I found what I was looking for while I was reading to you. Thank God for being able to multitask. Okay, 1 second. You will love it. But good, good, good. So let's get into this. I think this should be beautiful. So let me read Obasanjo's letter. Go. July 23, 2026. Chief Olusegun Osoba, former governor of Ogun State, number 1, Ataba Close, Ibara Housing Estate, Abeokuta, replied to your inaccurate posture, how Obasanjo deceived us in 2003. There are many things you got wrong and many things you omitted inadvertently or inadvertently in your write-up carried in the Legal Observer of July 20, 2026. Your presentation in your write-up was far-fetched, to put it mildly. But before I go further, I take strong and serious objection to your calling me a deceit because I deceived nobody. I always presented my case and all issues as I had them and as I understood them, no matter whose ox is God. There were issues you did not know or understand because, as you pointed out, they were above your head. They were they were handled by your elders in Alliance for Democracy, AD Party, and Afenifere. And there were issues that you, governors of the Southwest, kept away from me, which normally should be discussed or raised with me, but were raised or discussed somewhere else. I would not say that you were diabolical or deceitful. You chose what you would do and you did what you chose. Others could also choose differently. On my being released from prison, for also start from that point, many people came to congratulate me and started insinuating that I should have a role in the government again. I paid no attention initially because I had serious family matter, my children's schools to attend to. Sooner, groups started to call on me to directly invite, not just to insinuate. The first group was led by Lawan Katina to me on my Ota farm. I received them, thanked them, and promised to think about their invitation. The second group was led by Chief Esema Folabi, who was Deputy Governor to Chief Bolaige. The third group was led by Martin Square. The last two groups were Yoruba-led, and I told them that the circle needed to be widened and enlarged. I believe that the two groups included Afenifere and non-Afenifere. You did not know that I had these approaches, contacts, or invitations. With these approaches, I decided to consult in Southwest, East, and North. In the Southwest, my first call was to Ibadan to consult Chief Akinloye, Chief Bolaige, Chief Richard Akinjide, and Professor Oyeleye. In the North, I consulted two friends, Sunday Awoniyi and Adamu Chiroma. In the East, I consulted Professor Anezi Okoro and author Mbanefo. That quick consultation was like sounding board. It gave me a quick and a good feel. From that sounding, I decided to take interest in what was going on in party formations and the special role that Bolaige was playing at that time. People's Democratic Party (PDP) attracted my attention and my interest, and I was being regularly posted. After the formation of the parties, I formally joined PDP. I continued my consultations and campaigns at the same time. For me, politics is for welfare and well-being of people, and there should be no personal bitterness or acrimony in it. And if you do not know If you do not do my politics or play my own way, that should not lead to hatred, enmity, or antagonism. It is a matter of ideas, policies, and competition and choice. I'll tell that again. It is a matter of ideas, policies, competition, and choice. Excuse me. While competing with Alex Ekweme, I was a guest in his house when I went to Anambra to campaign for primary to be candidate of PDP for the presidency. We ate together, and the following morning, I went out to campaign. When I told him that I would repair the road to his settlement when I became president, he retorted that what he could do by himself, he would not give to someone else to do for him. We laughed it off. On 3 occasions, I visited Chief Abraham Sonia, and on the 3 occasions, he vowed that Yoruba would not vote for me. I never stopped. Yoruba boy, born and bred well, I must give respect where it is due and let go. And that was done. I must say that there was no time I called on Papa Adesoya in his Papa residence that I was not well entertained. He made sure that his daughter was around to entertain us. Yet Papa stood on no vote for me, and I stood on my respect and what was due to him. Aremo, I wonder how much of that you knew. Otumba Fashawe accompanied me on each visit and he listened to my prayers. Before we went into the election, President Jimmy Carter visited Nigeria to ensure peaceful election in Nigeria. He met presidential hopefuls in Sheraton Hotel in Ikeja. As I was going in, Bolagi was coming out. I asked Bola, how now? I met you in Ibadan, and you said that there would be a fence mending to do. Have you done the fence mending for me? He said, we'll meet. I'll tell you again. That was Obasanjo asking Bolagi, Bola, how now? I met you in Ibadan, and you said that there would be fence mending to do. Have you done the fence mending for me? He said, we'll meet in the field. We never met in the field. That was above your head. The elections came. The elections came. PDP won 21 state governorships in other parts of the country, less Yoruba land. And at the presidential, almost 63% of the votes were cast for me, but not much votes for me from Yoruba land. I believe that in politics, as in life, you must never stop communicating and widening your circle of friends and loved ones. Turn adversaries to neutrals and turn neutrals to friendly. That is part of my own philosophy in politics and in life. After all, life is so short. I rather make friends than enemies and live in love with godliness and integrity to serve humanity and God. Bringing PDP and AD to join me for a sort of national government was not out of weakness, rather, it was out of strength and the unity and progress of the country. And anyone who saw that as coming from weakness or being in a political trouble would be mistaken. As soon as we came into government, the first thing I did was to place all Southwest PDP gubernatorial candidates in appointments at the center, since they were all woefully defeated and we were warned that and we saw it coming. And it came. That it came was not the main thing. It was how we handled it. I called a meeting of the defeated governorship candidates. I have my opinion about these things, by the way. I'll wait for you to share yours. I see some people trying to come up. You come up soon. Let me just finish reading this part. Where was I? I called a meeting of the defeated governorship candidates. He's talking about the AD governors who tried to become, sorry, the PDP governors who tried to become PDP governorship candidates who tried to become governor in 1999. So it says, I called a meeting of the defeated governorship candidates. I said, our people, the Yoruba, did not vote for us. Next time, I want them to vote for us, and that we begin now. Some of the defeated governorship candidates were trying to make excuses. I said that it was not time for excuses, but time for action. I told Dr. Shegun Agagu that I was going to start from his state, Ondo State, and the first AD stalwart I invited for discussion was Mrs. Mobolaji Oshomo, who happened to be a fellow poultry farmer with me earlier. My position was simple. The Yoruba had been in the periphery for so long. Let them come to the mainstream. At least they would know what is going on. I then asked Mrs. Oshomo to join us. She did not hesitate. I asked what I could do for her. and she said that I had honored her enough by asking her to come on the mainstream. That was one of the exercises that took place during my first time in the Southwest, either known or unknown to you, Aremo. I visited states, some twice during my first time, no matter under which political party platform the state was governed. It was in the process of learning and making friends, and friendships cultivated that ways last. You talked of stoop to conquer. Even in my own relationship with you as my state governor, not belonging to my political party, you would remember that I normally called on you when I visited home. Of course, you called back on me. I believe that Enitiko Kinikule Opadanu Ẹkáàbọ, but others could say they are presidents and they should be visited first. I don't believe in that. It is all part of stooping to conquer in life for good leadership as far as I'm concerned. Some Yoruba elders and obas undertook advocacy on their own and not because I sent them. And those who did that I knew, I thank them, and many that did across the country for national progress. And that takes me to Naba's impeachment you glowingly talked about. And the way you wrote about it, talking about remorse would suggest stark ignorance on your part or being an accomplice. And both were possible. Naba's impeachment began at the presidency by the vice president. So this is where we now go into Atiku's matter. Naba's impeachment began at the presidency by the vice president, who on a Friday, when I was out of the office, invited Naba to his office and convinced him, as he had convinced himself and some others, but of insignificant number, that I should have only one term as president. And this was the act of the man I brought up from governorship to vice president. From the first day as vice president, he raised campaigners for his presidency. On the Friday, he invited Naba. He gave him 5 million naira to begin his impeachment work. It was all noted, recorded, and reported to me by my chief of staff, a professional intelligence officer. The game continued to be played on with me treating it with contempt, as I have committed no impeachable offense except by, excuse me. The game continued to be played on with me treating it with contempt, as I have committed no impeachable offense except my vice president who wanted to take over by hook or by crook. It was President Shagari who, on his volition, asked me about impeachment, and I told him that for me, there was absolutely nothing in it. He requested for my permission to handle it, and of course, I gave him the go ahead. Aremolu Shegun Shoba, please show me what you'll be remorseful for if you were in my position. Former Governor Shegun Shoba, let me remind you of the political situation in which you created or seem to see created a monumental political upheaval that I will see the 6 governors of AD in the Southwest to extricate me out of. That could not be done by 21 PDP governors plus the 9 APP governors, and could not be done by my PDP and APP if you would pull AD, which was also in my government politically. Of course, whatever you need to adorn yourself will be understandable. But I stood and I continue to stand for communication, dialogue and love and harmony, and widening and deepening of friendship and fellowship. These are good character traits, and these are good character traits, and I will hold on to these attributes to the end of my life. My dear brother Olusegun Oshoba, I don't know what would best describe what you claimed was presented to me on my farm with Egbon Ayo Adebanjo leading hyperbole, presumption, disregard, takeover, or what? Could you agree to such effrontery? 6 to dictate to 30 is ridiculous. I had an executive council. I had a national assembly. I had a viral political party, 21 governors and 9 other governors from another party with my government. And it was AD and Afenifere that would have to dictate to me what my government would have to do. I had a program that we were steadily implementing. I would not say that you could not say all those things, but I may listen and in politeness not answer back. But you should know I would not accept such dictation if you presented it. For you to present such to me was to grossly underrate me. It was the second time. Before the swearing in, I was invited to Papa Onosonya's house in Surulere. When we got there, we met about 5 AD stroke Afenifere stalwarts waiting. Papa Onosonya invited me into the room alone and asked, what do we do with Yoruba president? I screamed and said, Nigerian president must not be trivialized by tribalizing it. This is what I was waiting for, by the way. I'll take that part again. What do we do with Yoruba president? That was what Papa Onosoya asked him. I screamed and said, Nigerian president must not be trivialized by tribalizing it. If you say anything about it, that's why whenever people tell you that the first person that actually became president from the Yoruba side is Tinubu, they're not lying. No. Obasanjo has that one Nigeria thing in the head. Listen, Tinubu is working for the country. But if you remember what we read from Olusegun, I have to pause. I'm going to go back to the book. I don't want to share all my thoughts, but just this one. If you remember what we read from Olusegun Osoba's book, the conditions that the leadership of Afenifere and AD gave Obasanjo at the time, those conditions are Yoruba in origin. Do you get what I'm saying? Restructuring, devolution of powers, fiscal federalism, moving things from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. All those things are from the Yoruba. It's our school of politics. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, if you go to Aso Rock and you begin to implement those things, you are not doing it for Yoruba people, you are doing it for Nigeria. But the political philosophy that birthed those things you are talking about are from Yoruba. Do you get the point? So the mistake people make, and I want to quickly make this point. The mistake people make is that when you say that you're proud of being Yoruba and you talk about Yoruba presidency, like Tinubu, for instance, like Obasanjo, they assume you are trivializing it. I don't even like the word trivialize because I know what it's trying to say. They assume or they are projecting that you're trivializing it by tribalizing it. But Tinubu is a Yoruba president. Obasanjo was definitely not a Yoruba president. Not that he was not Yoruba, but it was not pushed there by the Yoruba people, which was fair. And that's why I understand when he says that, why should I listen to you guys? And I get that. And he has a right not to listen to anybody. However, when it comes to, oh, Ola Biroke, you're going to have to, it's my platform. Oh, I do it the way I want to do. This is what I want to do. Thank you very much. Where was I? If you want to read, you can go and get the book. The books are available. Thank you, please. I've been reading since morning. I didn't even hear you come to say well done. Now I'm pausing to do something apart from reading. You have an opinion. Thank you very much. This is how I want to do it. God bless you. Where was I before you interrupted me? The point is, a Yoruba person pushing policies from Yoruba point of view does not in any way turn what he's doing to a tribal agenda. It just means that he has roots, and those roots are founded in the ideology or the political outlook of his own people. But when he gets there, whatever he's implementing is for the good of Nigeria. So whether you're doing local government autonomy, you're doing development commissions across the regions, you're doing state police, everything you're doing restructuring of the country like Tinubu is doing right now, is from the Yoruba school of thought, but it's for the benefit of all of us. And I'm pausing to say that for many of us, we have conversations about Nigerian politics, and before you say one or two things, you are told that you're a bigot, you're a tribalist, and whatever nonsense they bring up. They are trying to change topic by saying be detribalized. Let's have a Nigerian goal. The question I want to ask people is this: what is the Nigerian political school of thought? It doesn't exist, apart from everybody steal money. What's the Nigerian goal when it comes to politics? What's the Nigerian dream? It doesn't exist. And the funny thing is that Yoruba people are the ones who act as if it exists. Every other group knows. Arewa knows what's up. You must have the book reading. I'm taking a break. But when I'm in that mood, please just hold on. I beg. What was I saying? Arewa have their own agenda. The Southeast have their own agenda. Everybody has their own agenda. Yoruba people is thinking of Nigerian agenda. It doesn't exist. You have to have your agenda that will. The beautiful thing about Yoruba agenda, though, is that it is put together in such a way that it will bless or it will benefit the country. Unlike the other regions, whose agenda is actually to benefit their region first, if not only, or more. Now that I've taken that break, let's go back to the book. The chief that told me to continue reading, thank you for being here, but please, let's also respect ourselves. It's not good that when the person wants to do something, you say, go back to the it's not like, God bless us, for all of us. Amen. Let's go back to reading. Where was I? Before the swearing in, I was invited to Papa Onosoya's house in Surulere. When we got there, we met 5 other. Thank you, Bombu Bejari. It's not like I'm here to be reading. That's why I tell you the title of the book. Order on Read Omi books. I'll pause again. Order on Read Omi books. You will get all the books, I beg. And please, trying to be saying well done. So at the time you say that well done, you know why they didn't call basically it's not cool. That way the only time we hear you speak is when you want to have. But thank you very much for your observation. I really appreciate it. And I hope I wasn't too harsh. And if I was, I apologize, but I have to say that. Let's go on. Before the swearing in, I was invited to Papa Onosonya's house. Sonya invited me into the room alone and asked, "What do we do with Yoruba president?" I screamed and said, "Nigerian president must not be trivialized by tribalizing it." There's one more thing that you may need to be reminded in the AD governors and my vice president honeymoon. When he failed in the impeachment exercise, he made a two-track approach. One, to go with Alex Ekweme, and Alex had, sorry, one, to go with Alex Ekweme, and Alex to hand over to him in the third year of his presidency. Second is for the 6 AD governors of Southwest not to have competition from any other party in 2003, so that in 2007, you would all yield the field to my vice president. You were all convinced of this anti-democratic plan, and you all fell for it. I was told that I was said to be selling the idea that if it was said of me, it was a lie. Aremo, such was sold to you in a darrow, and none of you thought it fit to check with me. Or I was not worth checking with, since I was not a nominee of AD Afenifere. Have no dealing with Obasanjo as president, but deal with his vice president, and you would get the best. That was clever political move. They should have put a full stop there, and you get the best full stop. That was clever political move. I should remind you that you were the one who told me how late Shehu Yaradua nearly turned you over in Abeokuta, your constituency in the days of SDP, and you had to use other unorthodox means to get over Shehu. Papa Jasin told me similar story about Shehu during the same SDP plot. Shehu, with all due respect, was my protege. Whatever Shehu could do, his mentor could do as well, if not better. By the way, Shehu is Umaru's elder brother, who worked with Obasanjo when he was in the military, but became one of the major figures in SDP. Let's go on. Shehu, with all due respect, was my protege. Whatever Shehu could do, his mentor could do as well, if not better. Your loss or defeat in 2003 was genuine in all the 6 states except the one where the figures were successfully and murderously changed, as Chief Tinubu, the head of service in Lagos then, accurately reported to me. I took it as what God allowed. From information that reached me from the political field, you barely campaigned, and at the tail end of the campaign, you went on TV to apologize to the people for your arrogance and inform them that the starch in your agbada caused your arrogant appearance. The brisk movement through Southwest by PDP on Thursday before the Saturday election in 2003 was incomparable and successful. There were lessons to learn on both sides. I learned the lesson of whether the other side is right or wrong. There should be no bitterness and there should be no accommodation and tolerance. Afenifere and its political party never rose beyond tribal cul-de-sac. There's lesson for all in that. What is tribal about it? Obasanjo is always acting as if every other person is just a tribalist and is the only one that understands one Nigeria. I mean, I'm not saying everything that Osoba said about him is right, but I'm just talking about what he is saying. Okay? And so, these are some of the issues also with Papa. Well, we'll get to that later. It would appear that once you were not an AD or a Afenifere member, you would be a liar or a deceiver. If you fail to follow my line, you must be maligned and set out as an enemy. I have never believed in tribal politics. I sympathize with some Afenifere leaders who died with regret as they expressed to me before they died. Chief Gani Daudu, Chief Abraham Adesonya, Chief Oyadebanjo. I was close to some of them before they died. What they cherished, taught, believed, and practiced were not what their proteges accepted, believed, and practiced. Afenifere and what they stood for would not congratulate me when I came out of prison or when I became president. Did it mean anything to me? No. I did not even know of until I was told that they held a meeting of Afenifere to decide such pettiness. How mean? Well, God answered my prayer that I was not too far away from the deathbed of some of them as Yoruba elders. I thank God that I did not I thank God that I did what I could to show no bitterness, hard feelings, or lack of appreciation to God. Aremo, going through your Afenifere experience and all what God has done for you and where you are today, you have lessons to learn. You have many things to understand, and you have thanks to give to God and to give men and women. And finally, it is not over until it is over, and there is no end to humility and thanksgiving. You were overwhelmed with your own interest, not to look at or consider others. In politics, no one should be ignored or disregarded, and politics may end, relationships may live till life's end. But let me remind you, the interactions that were not, to the best of my knowledge, influenced by party affiliation, party political affiliation or card. I wanted governors to acquire land in Abuja and build houses. Party consideration was not involved. You were driven to believe, as I believed also, that it was necessary to develop Abuja. I remember that when you developed Osoba Hilltop and took me to show me the plot you wish to allocate to me, to form a circle with the one for you and for Chief Juneko, I shouted about price. You reminded me that when I pushed you to Abuja, you paid significantly for it. But the greatest service you rendered for me and for Abeokuta is the land allocated by you for Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, OOPL. It has become the most significant landmark in Abeokuta. All of us in Abeokuta thank God for that landmark. Thank you, and thank God for your life. The allocation was made for the good of my program and in the best interest of Abeokuta and indeed Ogun State, with little money paid by me. There was neither politics played nor any game in the process. That is Obasanjo. That was Obasanjo's response to Chief Oshoba. I have questions. I have thoughts. I already shared some of those thoughts. I'll bring you up now to share some of yours, then I'll ask my questions. My question, let me just ask one before I bring you up. Did Baba really answer that question about how 2003 elections went down? Because he referred to what happened in 1999, but he didn't really talk about what Oshoba was really talking about when it comes to once a win and the discrepancy in the numbers. So let me know your thoughts. There are elders, but I just don't like the fact that some people think that once you say you are for Yoruba, somehow you are tribalistic. That's why people will not do certain things in their own home region because they want to be seen as, what's the word now? What came to mind is Yoruba and is a bit negative. They want to be seen as good by everybody, but Nilenko, someone says that OBJ is also a good writer. OBJ is a fantastic writer. OBJ is a fantastic writer. And I said earlier, no president in Nigeria's history has written as many books as OBJ. And I dare say that many professors in this country have not written as many books as Obasanjo has. So he has my respect for that and for other things as well. Let's listen to your thoughts about what we've read, and maybe we'll go to the news later, and then how we brought Atiku into the mix. We'll talk about it as well. Please, as soon as you get up, please mute so that we can have a conversation without interference. All right. We have Bumblebee now, so we're going to start with Bumblebee. Good evening, Bumblebee.
Good evening, Prof.
Welcome, sir.
Information tank ban nírọ̀lẹ́ ó kí díẹ̀ o, to be honest. And let me just start with this. First, the other member on this channel that was requesting for you to continue reading, I understand where it's coming from, but for the most part, why I had to make that comment is people need to understand what's going on here. What's happening here is a teaching. It's a teaching. And there are so many things that you know that we don't know. And I'm sure...
There are many things that you know that I don't know either.
No, I'm coming. Let me put it in context. Like the way you explain some things to us. And one thing I really like this platform for, I was going to make that comment later, but let me make it now. One thing I like this platform for is the way you present information is from a place of knowledge. And it's not a place from self-assumption. It's not a place of self-assumption, coming to conclusions, and it's a place of reading books based on people that were there when things happened, and then you make those connections, and then you come here and teach us. And then you even don't just come here to state it expressly that this is what happened, this is my opinion, yada, yada, yada. You come, you teach us, you read the books to us, you play some of these tapes, you play some of these events, and then you are now able to draw these conclusions based on evidence, which is very, very powerful. So, and it's one of the things that makes me stay on this platform. I told you the only reason I use TikTok is because of this program. This is the only thing I do on TikTok. Now, I said that because I also want to appreciate the quality of people we have coming to this channel. Last Friday, I think, I've not been able to come on, I think yesterday, Friday, and Thursday, but I've been very busy. So, I'm always joining the program. So we realize that the quality of people that come in here, people that went to, Russell Group schools, Ivy League people that are in this channel, if they are people that if you've been coughing out junks to them, they won't be coming back to this channel to listen. We have older people that are in their 70s, 60s, 50s, and all coming to this channel. People that were there, that were alive when these things were happening. So it's not the knowledge you are getting here cannot be trivialized, and I don't take it for granted. Now let me move on.
Sorry, please, before you go on, I need to say this. So the person who wrote earlier that we should continue reading, I think I should also explain that I believe you are coming from a good place. It's just that sometimes, I want to explain, sometimes it's not easy to keep reading like that. That's one. It's important to take breaks. So sometimes when I'm having the news, it's easier because I can play you videos and take a rest and then go on and back and forth. So it's easier to do that. That's number one. So sometimes you need to actually create breaks, like take a sip of water or do other things. That's one. Number two, sometimes there's something called information overload. Okay, you are reading so many things. I'm talking from my perspective now. So I am a teacher, right? So I try not to assume that everything Timon so it doesn't mean that I'm very sure but I mean gongba mi o gesi wele so that way we can all get to understand it. So that's the goal. It's not because I like hearing the sound of my own voice, So try and understand, all right? And also, I don't really appreciate when people try to direct how things should go, especially when I don't usually see them on the platform. But I also apologize for that because just because I don't see you right on the platform doesn't mean that you don't come here. So thank you for raising that point. But I needed to speak up the way I did at the time because I just had to, right? But thank you for being here regardless, okay? Thanks a lot. So let's go back to Bumblebee. Please continue with your submission. Thank you.
Yeah, let me add to what you just said now. I think explaining those things also give context to what we are trying to say. Coming to give a sort of summary of what you've just read and giving context to how it happened in history and the chronology of how those things happen is very, very important. Now, I said that to say, number one, if people know some of these things, they won't be going around claiming to be Yoruba obedient. Because it's just like, it'd be like, oh, I want. So so it's just like person wey no know say riot dey happen for one place. You just say gbogbo street da o kò bọ́ sáàrin títí o bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní wíwà. Àwọn máa jáde wọn á ṣáyín ṣàkóṣà tó mọ nǹkan tó ń lọ ládùúgbò. You just see an empty street and everywhere is quiet and things are unusual. You don't know why things are like that. So when people come out and they're shouting obedience, you don't know why the north doesn't differ to voting for people that are from the southeast. You don't know. But when they come and tell us all the things that they perpetrated in the First Republic, then you begin to understand. Even things leading up to the independence, then you begin to understand, oh, scores to one scores to one this is why people are this was informing people's decisions, this was informing people's behavior, this is how people have behaved historically, and this is how they are likely to behave in the near future. Now, I think this also gives me a lot of context to the politics of Yoruba land. How things are swung since the recent 1919 post-1999 Fourth Republic. How things have been swinging. You know how Obasanjo has been playing his own politics. To me, Obasanjo, I kind of had him in high regards, but all this new information is making me realize that the man is a very selfish person. Even information coming around, yes, it's my opinion though, coming around about some of the things he did with his daughter-in-law and his son-in-law and his son and his daughter-in-law and all that. So for me, he's just a selfish person. He's a selfish person because some of the things he did, I think he did them to spite the Afeniferis. He did some of those things to spite the Afeniferis. Now that will let you somehow. I think some people will now begin to make connections of what exposed Bola Ige to the kind of death that happened to him. Some of those politics that were going on, people having some kidding. I'm not making any conclusions, but second of all, you will now begin to understand that after all the dirty politics it did to steal Yoruba from AD, right? Also trying to push Funshaw Williams. Please, it's a wild connection, but I'm not going to say make any conclusions. Trying to push with Funshaw Williams into Lagos, deny Lagos State their money and everything, and how also Funshaw Williams no Farako in Farakasa to an extent. But I'm not going to say more than that. But you now begin to understand that at the end of the day, everything that Obasanjo did, he did for his own ego, he did for his own vengeance, he did it for his own vendetta. He might have been a good president, but we could have had better. Olufalaye had better resume, had better leadership. At the end of the day, we will be in a good place for all the decisions, for all the hard decisions that they've taken, in these first 4 years. And I know it's going to go. The North is very, very aligned. Even the East is aligned. A lot of their governors are very aligned. They are seeing the good things that are happening. So for me, I think it's really, really nice knowing things that happened in the lead up to 1960, knowing things that happened in the lead up to 1966, the coup and everything proposed, the military administration and everything, and even till today, and things that are currently happening. So I really appreciate the teaching, and I wanted to say that other things I'm going to say, maybe at the end of the teaching, I'll come up and say it. I need to go back to work. Eshegon.
Thank you very much, Bumblebee. I really appreciate your submission. Brilliant as usual. There are others who are trying to come up. I tried to bring you up, but I can't see you now. I'll try again. Meanwhile, I've not heard from Concilium in a while. At Mr. Remy and CEO. Okay, I think I don't know if they're coming up. So are those allegations about OBJ and his sons in law really true? No comment. Number one, number two, I think some of those things are very personal. And I think also at some point, I don't know what Aboshima said to it, the sons, the ones that Yabo said. Yabo wrote a letter now, he's in the public space. Dr. Yabo Obasanjo, that's his first child, you know. Let's just leave that matter, at least for now. But Ba's perspective, right? Obasanjo did not represent us. And that's why, and I said it earlier, that when we talk about Yoruba, the president, the first time Tal by the president in the true Tinubu. And that's not because Tinubu is funneling money exclusively to Yoruba people or is doing projects just for Yoruba people. That's not why we say that. It's because there are plans that are native to us. You see, there are ideologies that we believe in, we've been holding on to for decades. And for the first time, we have someone there to implement those plans for the benefit of the entire country. That's what it means to have you. It doesn't mean just because you have a Yoruba name or you're from Yoruba land does not mean you're actually there to represent Yoruba people. But of course, I won't go as far as say, oh, he's not a Yoruba person. Someone says Obasanjo was against MK Abiola's presidency. I mean, even that you can say maybe they have their own issues because MK Abiola was with the military and there are some other people in the military. I don't know what to use now. Set up that were against him. Maybe they have their own issues, right? If you really want to talk about Yoruba interests, to be honest, Tibashi recently, no. Up until the 1993 election, most people here, especially the ones who are older, will tell us that people didn't think MKO was representing Yoruba interests. It was a philanthropist and it was good to everybody, whether Yoruba or anybody, it was good. But was it part of that core ideology to Jeti Awo or to Jeti Yoruba? That political perspective, it wasn't. It was an MPN. It was with the Northerners. I mean, somewhere along the line, this is what somebody wrote in the comment section exactly. It was with the Northerners. So, if you really think about it, Tinubuni, but there is something that Baba said, Baba Obasanjo said, I also think is important to understand that don't play your politics as though everything ends in your region. I get that bit. And I think some people can be like that. Some of us can be like that. Some of our leaders have also done that. You can't play national politics the same way you play, local politics or regional politics. So I get that bit. However, this thing that people keep using, I don't belong to a tribal party. And I'm sorry, Obasanjo repeated it twice. I don't belong to tribal party. Don't trivialize Nigerian presidency with tribalism. Like all those things, they make you sound like you are one Nigeria, the tribalized person. But in reality, you finish and then you go back and people are asking, what exactly did you even do for the country? Let alone for your own part of the country. So if you ask me, I would rather be the person who takes on the Yoruba ideology to the center and use it to help everyone in the country than to be the person who gets to the center and asks them, what ideas do you have? And everybody just tells me stuff that most of them are just, for the most part, selfish for their own. Let's face it, the reality. Look at the plans that many of the politicians or political leaders from different regions of Nigeria have put forward since independence, and tell me how many have been based on altruism. For the most part, it's about what they can get. I'm not mentioning any specific group. Just think about it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. And I'm not saying that they're not Yoruba people who don't have that mindset as well. But I'm saying if you are in that school of thought, whether you are looking at AG or UPN, there's a thread that runs through, or even AD. There's a thread that runs through, right? You see that consistency, you see free healthcare, free education, the kind of things that Awo did in the 50s, you see it done in Lagos by Alhaji Jakonde, you see it in Oyo State, that was in 79 with Bola Ige, you see it in Ondo State with Adekunle Ajasin, you see it in Ogun State with Olabisi Onabanjo. It was consistent, and by the time you get to 1999 with AD, you still see it in all the states, Oyo, Osun, Ogun, Ondo, Ekiti, Lagos, all those 6 states where you have AD governors, they continue with that ideology. And for me, that's why I like Ashwaju, to be honest. It's not so much because of APC. I personally, I don't know the ideology of APC. And I've said it several times, Nigerian political parties don't really have ideologies, and it's a shame. That's why you can jump from one party to another, and you don't have to go through any orientation. You're already a member of the party. You don't need to learn anything. They're essentially platforms to achieve your political objectives or political ambitions. But Tinubu as a person, àwọn ideas tó ń gbé jáde yẹn, àwọn ideas tó wá látọ̀dọ̀ àwọn bàbá yẹn, and I like that personally. I will never really cared for that. Now that I'm saying it, I don't think I can do any news today. But let me bring you a book, if you don't mind. Should I bring a book? I'd like to read. I was going to say something about him and Obasanjo, and Papa Awo. That's between Olusegun Obasanjo and Awo. He doesn't really care for all this where Yoruba. Is Yoruba, although some people have some theories that I don't want to get involved in. But I would say that being a Yoruba person in power does not mean you are representing Yoruba interest. And representing Yoruba interest is not a selfish thing, like he thinks and is saying, like tribalism. Representing Yoruba interest, if it really represents Yoruba interest in Nigerian political landscape, you will be a blessing to every Nigerian. That's the beauty of our heritage as Yoruba people. That's the beauty of it. That's why I'm very proud to be an Awoist. That's why I'm very proud to be Yoruba. That's why I can be Yoruba and Nigerian and don't feel like there's something stopping me from achieving greatness because of one is not stopping me from achieving greatness. And if you really want to understand what I'm saying, you have to go back to read the Egbemoduduwa Charter, 1945. Maybe we should do that, and then some other day we'll do the letter between Obasanjo and Papa. Let's do some things so that we can all be grounded in why we should be proud, because that's the lesson that. Right? I'm not saying Osoba was right, because what he said, it was reported at the time, even quoted 2 journalists, so he's not making anything up. Obasanjo did not really respond to those things. He was saying something else, and he has his own point. Osoba has his own point. And I don't want to stay in between 2 elders and say one is right, one is wrong. However, there are lessons to draw from this thing. So let me tell you where I think Obasanjo was wrong, is this idea of reducing everything that is Yoruba to tribalism. I think it's not the smart way to do things. And I see a lot of young people. That's why a lot of us are joining Obedient. You're trying to prove that you're one Nigeria. You're joking. One lue bi omi so one de nu. Obasanjo can afford to do that because it's at the highest level. If you are a regular person, you're playing that game. And even Obasanjo, who did at the highest level, what is he remembered for? What's he remembered for? Think about it. And I'm not saying he didn't achieve a lot of stuff. I think next to, and now I would say next to Tinubu in the Fourth Republic, Obasanjo will come second. I think Tinubu has done more structurally in 3 years than Obasanjo did in 8. I'm not saying everything, but I say structurally. So I know what I'm very specific because somebody now going to say, what do you mean? So I was saying the lesson I want us to take from this, right? If we have time, we'll get to the news. If not, this will be enough for today. Trust me. The lesson I want us to take from this is not to trivialize everything Yoruba by using the word tribalism. Anything sorrow no comment section. Mo rí yín o. Mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ pé mo rí yín ni o. Pàápàá Mr. Remi. Ẹkáàbọ. Give me a second. I think you're going to like this. I just need to find the page. Or maybe I have to read this other one. 1 second. I want to read from Awo's autobiography. Again, if a Yoruba person, there's nothing like tribalism in politics is not true. Be that tribalist they are saying, but if they really think about it, you are the one changing things. By the way, let me go back on this matter. Let me go back to NYM on this matter. Back in the day, they used to say, I read this thing from Awo's autobiography. The book is called Awo, the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Okay, you can get it on Radio Books as well on Telegram. Says here, up to 1943, this is Papa talking. Up to 1943, the Nigerian youth movement pursued the policy and program adumbrated in its charter with unabated vigor and consistency. Wherever and whenever national duty called, it was there to respond. There was no iota of tribal taint in its program, nor was there any in its mechanics for effectuating it. It fought unremittingly for the Africanization of the civil service and for the abolition of discriminative practices against Africans, which were then rampant in the governmental and commercial life of the country. So if you go back in time, in NYM, they were all about nationalism. Nigeria as a nation, we are all one nation. In fact, they will talk about Africans, Nigerian African. They substitute those words sometimes. You say Africans, they say Nigerians. They're committed to the emancipation of the African and also the Africanization of the civil service. What that means basically is this. At the time, there were a lot of whites working in Nigeria, for instance, and they had dominated, the upper echelons of the civil service. They wanted to have Africans, people that look like us, working in those spaces, right? Particularly beyond the clerk. Like our clerks were black clerks, but they wanted to have go upper in the civil service, in the judiciary, and so on and so forth. So they wanted to do all those things. They were thinking nationally until Zeke happened. Zeke changed their mind. And if you want to read it, please get this book. I'm just going to read portions of it. I'm not going to go through everything that Zeke did because it is where there's a particular passage from this book. Yeah. By the end of August 1940, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. At the same time, thank you so much for the gift, Tidan. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group, to build up the Igbos as a master race, to magnify his own vaunted contributions to the nationalist struggles, to dwarf and misrepresent the achievements of his contemporaries, and to discount and nullify the humble but sterling quota which older politicians had made to the country's progress. Other incidents which happened thereafter merely went to strengthen my beliefs. What am I trying to say? Before Zeke, NYM, by the way, was founded in 1934. Zik was not in the country at the time, although he came around later and gave some speeches, but it wasn't part of the formation of NYM. But he joined later on. He came eventually in 1936. Was it 36? Yes, he returned in 36 from Ghana, and then he started West African Pilot in 37. When he came, it became very clear that Zik was about ethnic jingoism. Just get this book and read. I think the other books, so that it doesn't look like I read only one book. Let me recommend another one. Let me see if I can remember his name. Something about 1 second. There's another book I think if you read will also help. So by G.O. Olusoya. Nigerian Politics 3 by G.O. Olusoya. It was published in 1973. There are other books, but those two are good. Okay. There are others. The point I'm trying to make is that by the time Zik came on the scene, it was about Igbo supremacy. Now, for you to be playing "We Are One Nigeria" in that atmosphere means that you're very naive or very dumb. You're either very naive or very dumb. Okay? And from that time, 1938 to be exact, up until this moment, 2026, you cannot tell me that Nigerian politics, if you say anything Yoruba, you're a tribalist. I just assume that you don't know what you're talking about. I don't care who you are. Last week, somebody went on my YouTube and wrote there, I don't like how Nigerian politics has become ethnic based. And I was like, what are you talking about? Has always been. It has always been ethnic based. Then I wrote there, good morning, finally. I'm going somewhere with this torrential. The point is, originally, it was about Nigeria. The people who founded it were mostly Yoruba, by the way. Most of the people that were in NYM were Yoruba people because, of course, it was in Lagos. All right. They wanted the freedom of Africans, the elevation of the African, civilization, Africanization of the civil service, all those things they wanted. By the time Zik got in, he began to work against everything they wanted. For instance, he worked against Atiku Ademola becoming magistrate, saying that he didn't have prerequisite experience. Meanwhile, you said you wanted Africanization of the civil service. Oyinbos want you to have a magistrate who is African. You are a member of NYM, but you are writing against that. And then from 1938, it began to push supremacy from their own perspective. Igbos were better. It was writing 38, 39, 40, all the way into the 50s. By the way, by 1941, he ensured that he caused a rift in the NYM that eventually destroyed NYM. And what he did was to pit the Ijebu against other Yoruba people by saying that there was a problem between NYM and Akisonya, who eventually became the Oba, the Odemo of Shara, that there was a problem between them because he was Ijebu and the others didn't want him to be president of NYM because he was Ijebu, thereby creating a gulf between Ijebu and their other brothers, other Yoruba brothers. Zik did that. And he used his newspaper, which was called West African Pilot. I'm trying to give you the background to this. So in case somebody has told you that this all started 2023 is a lie. The earliest time I found in my studies, and if you find any time earlier, let me know. It was 1938. And Yoruba people did not push back until 1948. It took us 10 years to begin to speak up loudly and say, no, it's enough. 10 years. And one of the reasons was because Zik dominated the media space in Lagos at the time. And so when people, for instance, come around and tell you that, oh, Lagos Ibadan media, you guys are using Lagos Ibadan media. Number one, Lagos Ibadan media is not necessarily Yoruba. Vanguard is owned by Yoruba man. Guardian is owned by Hebrew. Independent is owned by an Igbo person. These days owned by Obi Agbena, the man who owns Arise. Is not Yoruba. A lot of them are not Yoruba. Tribune is probably what you call Yoruba, which is Yoruba, yes. Punch, yes, because I think he has a Yoruba founder. Tribune, of course, is the oldest surviving newspaper in Nigeria. It was formed in 1949. But the point I'm trying to make is that what they are trying to say you are doing is actually what their fathers did when they dominated the media landscape. By pushing ethnic jingoistic materials and saying they are better, they are superior. So Awo caught on in 1940, and he said, I'm going to read it again. By the end of August 1940, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of Yoruba people as a group. which is what you find in the obedient movement today. Those boys and girls will insult their fathers and insult their mothers as long as those fathers and mothers are Yoruba. They would never say anything wrong with other people, particularly if it's Igbo. They would never speak against hip-hop, but they'll castigate their own people. They'll insult Awolowo, insult Adeboye, insult. They say you are just right. By the way, if you're religious, whether you're religious or you're not, whether you're religious or non-religious, if you're having conversations in Nigerian politics and people begin to insult your religious leaders in your own ethnicity, it's not about the religion, no. It's about ethnicity. If you don't know, that is not. If you better go let's see a few more things here. By the end of August 1940, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group, to build up the Igbos as a master race. For instance, you find that in the speech that he gave in 1949, God of Africa has specially created the Igbos to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. This was the same man who told us in 1934 that there should be no Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, or anything. We should just be a man. If you're an African, you're an African. If you read this book that was published in 1934, book is titled The Renaissance Africa. We read it here before. We're not going to open it now. But the point I'm trying to make is that Zeke will tell you that we are all one Africa. We are all one this, we are all one that. But Larin Waninule is telling you about the supremacy of his own ethnicity. If you are playing politics in that kind of space, and your head, you're just like we are all one Nigeria, you are joking though. And I've not talked about the North yet. I will still mention their own bit. Let's just read a few more things here. By the way, the North plays a better game. You may not like it, but if you see it very well, we'll talk about it. Let me just finish this one. So he said his goal was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people. And I see it happening again. For the Northerners, what's their own? Their own is, number one, they began to have major problems with Papa in 1959. And you find it in the book, Adventures in Power, Book 2, The Travail of Democracy, The Travails of Democracy and the Rule of Law. They began to have a lot of issues with him because he was getting incursion into the North. They felt it was a preserve, right, exclusive preserve. And that goes back to their own history, 1804. You have to go back to 1804, look at the jihad, Usman and Fodio's role. And so by the time you had people like Sardauna, Ahmadu Bello, they felt, and by the way, he was also the great-grandchild of, it was from the line of Usman and Fodio. His great-grandfather was Sultan Bello, and of course, the line of Usman and Fodio. So naturally, it was like natural not selection, succession. Right. So what you used to have in religion and politics, in religion and cultural politics or traditional politics, you now have it in modern politics. So he became Sardauna as though we're still leading the entire northern region. So you coming to their region was a problem for them. I would explain how everything went down. I'm going somewhere, so that's what I'm just mentioning it, bit by bit. But the point is, you've got to know where you're operating. You can't be doing them detribalized unless you are joking. And it doesn't mean that you're a big god, that you hate people. There's a balance. Somehow some Nigerians don't know that you can be in the middle of the road when you're walking. Like you don't have to walk by the gutters. You don't have to be by the extremes, right? You are not, hey, everybody, I'm detribalized, you do anything you like. But also you're not, if you come here, I'll kill you, I'll hate you. You don't have to be either. You can love everybody and still have boundaries. I don't know why that's so difficult in Nigerian political conversations. Anyway, let's now go to where we are going. All of this was to provide a background of what changed. So in the beginning, like they say in the Bible, it was not so. In the beginning, everybody was thinking one Nigeria until they came around. And where Zeke came, for instance, some of the things Zeke did back in the day, Zeke would write newspaper articles and talk about the greatness of, the Igbos. And then we begin to compare. All right. And then, for instance, there was a football match, I've mentioned it before, where, boys traveled from Onitsha and came to Lagos to play. That was CKC team to play St. Gregory's. And they beat St. Gregory's 5-4. Zeke went to town with that. You think that something great has really happened. I'll see if I can find you that news report. It says here, he stood up. No. So this is 1949. Mumbo. Ibi tá ń lọ ò jìnnà, ibi tá ń yà ló pọ̀. Just give me a second, we're going to get there. We're still reading Papa's autobiography. I think it should be here. Okay, this was after the meeting in October 1940. I just want to read some of the things that happened before everybody began to give themselves brain. So if you think that you are wiser than the sages, you spend your life repeating the mistakes and you're not going to learn from them at the end of your life. We don't have that time. We can't be wasting our lives making the same mistakes that our fathers made. Do you get the point? Nobody hates anybody. Wait, Marikini, I need to read some of the things so that you will know what is up. One second, please. So, for instance, there was a publication in 1938 where Ziku, so before then, everybody will publish something. By the way, Zik was not the only one who had newspapers. There were other newspapers. There was Telegraph, there was Lagos Daily, there were other news. There was NS Ekoli, about Macaulay. Different people had papers at the time. But Zek's West African pilot became very popular, right? Zeke had a different style of writing, and you have to give it to him. He knew how to. The word is actually propagandize, right? I would call him the first consummate propagandist in Nigeria. He knew how to use words. He was a fantastic speaker. He also knew how to use big words. Somehow I was able to, attract people. So it became very, very influential. This paper also became very influential, right? And once that happened, it began to do some very interesting things. So let me read some of the things he did to you. Number one, there was a cocoa pool issue, right, in the 1940s, and this is what Zeke wrote about it. I already mentioned Akisoyabi, how he said, it was because NYM didn't want him because he was Jebu. Meanwhile, Howard, who wanted an Esekoli, was also a Jebu. You could say Jebu Remo today, but then they were just Jebu. And somehow Zeke found a way to make sure that until the NYM itself disintegrated eventually. So let me read this part to you. When the agitation against the cocoa pool was raging, though the pilots carried one or two articles and reports on the subject, Dr. Azikiwe himself showed no interest whatsoever. Also, when the ban on palm kernels was imposed, the pilot, that's Zeke's paper, the pilot supported it, said the pilot, the measure by the government is fair. Instead of reducing the whole country into poverty, only the western provinces will be affected, and they can switch over to other avenues to make body and soul live. In other words, now their problem with that. As a result of his indifference to these two economic crises, which threatened the livelihood of the people of the Western region, thank you so much for the gift, Theo. Thanks a lot. As a result of his indifference to these two economic crises, which threatened the livelihood of the people of the Western region, as well as the economy of the country as a whole, some of us began to wonder what Dr. Azikiwe's economic determinism really meant in practice. In other circumstances, Dr. Azikiwe would have dipped his pen in gall, as was his wont, and on the pages of the pilot, under his own name or in the editorial column, would have denounced the cocoa pool as an quote-unquote imperialist device or stratagem whose aim, object, or purpose was to oppress, repress, depress, and distress Nigerian cocoa producers and dealers economically. In the same manner, he would have vehemently claimed the ban on palm kernels in the western provinces as a gross betrayal of trust, an indelible stain, blemish, and stigma on British imperialism, a vain attempt, a complete misfire, and a palpable boner in the realm of divide et impera. The words in quotation marks were not exactly Dr. Azikiwe's, but they are typical of his early style. If the man could not go out and campaign against those unwelcome government ventures, sorry, I'll say it again. If the man could not go out and campaign against those unwelcome government measures, he could at least write in his paper in support of the agitators. He did not. Why? It did not concern him. You are the ones doing NYM. He came with an idea about his own ethnicity. If you let them gaslight you, is your problem. An article written by Zeke himself, published on the front page of the Pilot and entitled Football Iliad, 1940 edition, shocked many people. It was a big step forward in an insidious campaign which had gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the Pilot. So when it says more than 2 years, that means Okereju, Abiosheju, Otibelati Babi 1938. And we'll read some of the things from 1938 if we have time. But where we're really going is what our own fathers do, or what our fathers did, and where we can be proud of what they did. And where we can say we are Yoruba politicians, but that doesn't mean that we are going there to look for selfish gains. It means that we have something from home that we can bring from our arsenal and use that in a way that will benefit everybody in Nigeria. That's what it means to be a Yoruba politician. Not that you are going there to collect money so you can spend on your people, or you just go and find a way to corner everything. That's not the philosophy. The philosophy is affair very. Let's go back to this. So the article that Zeke wrote was published on the front page of the Pilot and entitled Football Iliad, 1940 edition. Big step forward in an insidious campaign which had gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the Pilot. A football team composed of students of the Christ the King's College, Onitsha, came to Lagos to play a win-the-war football match against St. Gregory's College. The CKC team from Onitsha defeated St. Gregory's team by 5-4. To the ordinary man in the street, let alone the highly sophisticated elements, there was nothing extraordinary or unusual in one school or college defeating another in a game of soccer. But not so with Dr. Azikiwe. He saw in the sporting exploit and triumph of the team from Onitsha the inherent superiority of the Easterners over their opponents. And he went to very great pains to establish this fact by means of careful choice of words and emphasis. These extracts from the article are relevant. This is what Zeke wrote. And then to think of the great combination of the Spartan heroes who crossed the lordly Niger, journeyed through the good earth of Benin, hurried across the domains of the Oshemawe of Ondo, of the Atanla of Owo, of the Owa of Ilesha, of the Ooni of Ife, of the Alaki of Abeokuta, in the invasion of these islands. Who but heroes of mighty brawn and exceptionally developed brain would have dared to make this invasion and succeed in carrying to the River Niger home the golden fleece of intercollegiate soccer championship of the eastern and western provinces? Here they came to Lagos. They saw the irresistible defense put up by their opponents, and they conquered impressively, convincingly, and were graceful even in victory. Could their achievement be paralleled? Would it not be better for me to leave the answer to the laps of the gods? On top of what? Secondary school children playing football match. Invasion. Exceptionally brilliant minds. Go consider, you know. Who but heroes of mighty brawn and exceptionally developed brain? In other words, their own brain developed past the one with them. On August 24, 1940, however, the same CKC team played in Ibadan against the Olubadan 11 in another win-the-war match. The CKC were beaten 3-2 by the Olubadan 11, which were an undiluted Yoruba team. Why? Because, you know, St. Greg's, you have other people, Nigerians, who are not Yoruba because, of course, it's Lagos. This was, by the way, 1940. So it makes sense that you're going to have different ethnicity. But anyway, this time, everybody's not Yoruba in this team. The CKC were beaten. CKC is Christ the King's College, Onitsha. The CKC were beaten 3-2 by the Olubadan 11, which were an undiluted Yoruba team. Apart from sending the news to the daily service myself, I also saw to it that it was wired to the Pilot. It was after there had been clamors in the daily service in form of letters to the editor that the news of this Ibadan match was published some 2 weeks later in the Pilot. Even then, it was a small item on the back page, and it was explained in it that the CKC team were already tired and that some of them were in fact limping before they went into the field against Olubadan 11. This was, of course, untrue. What does this mean? You play Lagos, you win the boys, you come out, you go back house. As long as they go, the concept you get exceptionally brilliant brain, exceptionally developed brain. Say your brain better pass one where you beat. You can't reach us now. A couple of weeks later, you can't travel to Ibadan. You go play with Ibadan. Ibadan is closer than Lagos, so bear that in mind. You can't go Ibadan. You go play boys with Ibadan, then beat you 3-2. The newspaper that was calling you exceptionally developed brains over the other ones where you win, you can't report that news. If you think what you are seeing on Twitter started happening in 2023, it's because you have not been looking. No. It's been like that since the 1930s. I'll go through some things from 30s very soon. The point I'm trying to make is that Zeke began to explain away the loss of the schoolboys and said it was because they were tired. They had traveled from Onitsha. If you are traveling, it's not about you get to before you reach Lagos. You can't talk, say, those one will go on by the time go Ibadan. By the time they reach Ibadan, they don't tire. Now why then beat them with that? How can a statesman, how can a person who has influence in the media be glaringly supporting his own ethnicity in football match like on secondary school students? Meanwhile, Awu and the rest of them were still shouting One Nigeria. So if you think this One Nigeria thing just started, it's not you. They've been doing it for a long time. And people that did it and made mistakes, they corrected it. They wrote those things in books. We are reading together. Let's continue. I said before that the CKC episode was a big step forward in an insidious campaign which has gone on for more than 2 years on the pages of the pilot. 1 or 2 more instances will be given. By the time the pilot had published for a year, beginning 1937, so published for a year will be that by 1938. By the time the pilot had published for a year, an important feature of the paper had become manifest. The Igbos in particular were given inordinate publicity on the pages of the paper. Perhaps this was as it should be. The Igbo had never had a share in newspaper publicity before the advent of the pilot. But equally so, no Yoruba man of the class of the Igbos publicized in the pilot ever had a share of publicity in any paper either. In those days, one had to be an outstanding politician, a big shot in society, or a well-connected person for one's name to appear in the Nigerian Daily Times, Nigerian Daily Telegraph, and Lagos Daily News. Of course, if you had a friend working in the news or composing section of a paper, no matter who you are, you might be slipped in. Names of people like myself appeared in the papers simply because we were agitators or freelance journalists. All the same, it was generally agreed that the Igbos needed all the boosting they could get. But Dr. Azikiwe went about it in a manner which disgusted those of us who were used to describing citizens of Nigeria as Nigerians or Africans, and regarding their achievements as reflecting credit on Nigeria, indeed Africa as a whole. So I'll say something before I read. I said earlier, before I continue reading, I said something earlier that back in the day, this was NYM, which again, like I said, began in 1934. The idea was about nationalism, the good of the country and the continent as a whole. Until 1938, Yoruba people, where they Lagos, even all over the place, the educated Yoruba people, where don't they do nationalism since the 1800s? Excuse me. There's a paper by Professor J.F. Adeajayi that talks about the root of Nigerian nationalism being cultural activism. And that began in Lagos churches, right? Yoruba people in Lagos churches pushing against imperialist tendencies of some missionaries. That's how cultural activism began, which eventually led to the formation of native churches in the 1800s, and eventually now had the African church in 1901 and breadfruit in Lagos. Okay? That was what eventually now birthed what we call nationalism, so that by 1923, NNDP was birthed by Herbert Macaulay. Nigerian National Democratic Party was created as the first political party. It was a product of all of that process. By the way, Herbert Macaulay was Ajayi Crowther's grandson. Ajayi Crowther himself eventually had to join the activists, the cultural activists in the church in the late 1800s, because he noticed that it could make sense. Meanwhile, his own son as well, I think it's Dandison, also joined that movement. The point I'm trying to make is that the people who were pushing all this nationalist thing, right, in Lagos, were just thinking about the black man, African, Nigerian, African, Nigerian, until 38 when Zik showed up. And these are some of the things that he wrote in his paper at the time. Take a listen to this. The following are typical of the titles of front page news items and of editorial articles. But let me read the entire paragraph again. Dr. Azike went about it in a manner which disgusted those of us, went about pushing Igbo ideas in such a manner that disgusted those of them who were used to describing citizens of Nigeria as Nigerians or Africans, and who regarded their achievements as reflecting credit on Nigeria and Africa. So this is what Zik started writing. So he says the following are typical of the titles of front page news items and of editorial articles in the pilot. Number 1. Igbo young man to sail to UK is the headline of a front page story and picture on September 23, 1938. The young man is Mr. Jaja Wachuku, now Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives. This book was published in 1960, so that's the context. Number 2, 14th West African student, 10th Nigerian, 8th Igbo in USA. Another front page story on January 28, 1939. The 8th Igbo is Mr. Nwafo Orizu, now Senator in Nigeria's upper house. Number 3, Igbo medical student passes exam in first class honors. Yet another front page story on June 26, 1940 of the brilliant success of Dr. S.O. Egwatu. Editorials. A model union, August 8, 1938, in praise of the Igbo Ibibio State Union. 1 year ago, celebrating the first anniversary of the call to the bar of the first Igbo lawyer. This was in 1938, August 18. The first Igbo lawyer was in 1938. That explains a lot, but it's okay. That's in the person of Mr. Justice Louis Mbanefo, now Chief Justice of the Eastern Regional High Court. Number 3, this is the title on December 31, 1938. This was the headline that you see, the editorial. The Igbo are coming. The very title is sufficiently indicative of the content. Now, I could go on and on to tell you some of the other things in the paper, just to give you an idea how Nigerians began to change their mind about this concept of detribalization. And that's why I say, if you're a Yoruba person who is practicing detribalization in 2026, you are either naive or dumb. And I hope you are neither. But it be like say you are one of the two. Naive is better, by the way. All of us were naive at some point. Don't be dumb. God bless you. Having said that, when you read the different things that happened back in the day, beginning from 38, and the introduction of the Zikist ideology as far as publication is concerned, which is purely ethno-jingoism, which of course pushed the supremacy of the Igbo people, other Nigerians, particularly the Yoruba people, whose lands these people are, living in, and who were used to always talking about African did this, Nigerian did this. Suddenly they are hearing Igbo did this, Igbo did that. Like, Osoba. Now here's the crazy part. The one who is pushing his ethnicity is the one who calls you a bigot and a tribalist for saying, no, that doesn't make sense. It tells you it's because you hate them. You are jealous. And there's a reason I said earlier, if you're having your first lawyer in 1938, Yoruba first, no, I don't like comparison, but it's just important to say that some of the things that people are celebrating in the 1930s and 40s, Yorubas were celebrating in the 1880s and 1890s. In fact, in some cases, 1870s. So there's no basis for comparison. The point is just that, why would I hate you? What am I going to be jealous of if I have what you're just having? In other words, what we have done, you are doing now, and as much as we are happy, but we would expect that you jump in the bandwagon of all of us just shouting one Nigeria, like, oh, Africans have achieved this great thing, say another African lawyer, another Nigerian lawyer, but no, we started saying another Igbo lawyer. We're not used to that. Now, I'm not going to go deep into this for because of time, but I'm going somewhere. Please stay with me. Shebi Martin Kabi, man. I think I'm reading 2 books. 1 second, please. Now, let's get into some interesting things here. I'll read one more thing that Zeke did. Well, before I do that, let me go back just a bit. In 1943, pay attention, please. In 1943, the Igbo Federal Union was launched. Now, let me quickly say something. If you read the other book I recommended earlier, Politics of Nigeria, Second World War and the Politics of Nigeria by G. Olusonya, you will see all the details. Again, like I said, if you are going to understand history, it's best to look at different books and different materials so you can piece everything together. But here's the point I'm trying to make. 1936 was when the first Igbo Union was created. The first Igbo unions were in Lagos and Calabar. Okay, they're always outside, Lagos and Calabar. And then in 43, they now decided to bring everybody together. But the very first cultural organization in Nigeria is the Ibibio State Union. It was founded in 1928. Shout out to Ibibio people. Let me say it slowly. Shout out to Ibibio people. They have the first cultural organization in the country. 36 was, before then, the Yoruba also have their own, different groups are having their own. There's another document. Maybe one day we're going to have a session on how Egbemotutua developed and what led to it, but I'll mention some of those things today. Anyway, the point is by 1943, the Igbo Federal Union was formed, which was like a conglomeration of all the Igbo unions all over the place. So pay attention, please. In 1943, the Igbo Federal Union was launched, and Dr. Azikiwe himself was not only a prominent member of it, but also its president. Both the Ibibio Union, now known as Ibibio State Union, and the Igbo Federal Union, now known as Igbo State Union, were able to arouse among their respective members such enthusiasm and selfless devotion as had never been known in the country. I welcome this phenomenon as a worthy means to a great end. If the members of each ethnic group feel happy among themselves, if they are free within prescribed limits to order their own lives and advance their culture as they like, and if the solidarity and devotion exhibited within their ranks can be sublimated to the cause of the nation, the federal unity of Nigeria would have been assured. But whilst there was an Ibibio Union and an Igbo Federal Union, there was no comparable, all-embracing union for the Yoruba. Since the strength of a chain is that of the weakest link, I thought it would be in the interest of the federal unity of Nigeria if one was founded. What he's saying basically is this: as at this date, there was nothing that brought every Yoruba. We knew we had one Asian place in Ife. Our parents were talking about it, and all over the place, and we knew that history. But in reality, we're not together like that as at this stage. The Yorubas were a highly progressive but badly disunited group. They paid lip service to a spiritual union and affinity in a common ancestor, Oduduwa. But in all their long history, they had waged wars against one another. When the Portuguese and the British had visited their coasts in the course of their slave trade, the Yorubas had shown no qualm of conscience in conducting violent and merciless slave raids on one another. These intertribal wars and slave raids had come to an end under the so-called Pax Britannica. But the mutual hatred and acerbity which were attendant on them lingered. Furthermore, the propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe was already having a deleterious effect on a once dynamic group. The Yorubas now indulge in mutual recrimination and condemnation. Please, I'll slow down now. Please be picturing this if it's still happening now, particularly amongst folks on Twitter. Please just pay attention. I'll go back just a little bit. Furthermore, the propaganda of Dr. Azikiwe was already having a deleterious effect on a once dynamic group. The Yorubas now indulged in mutual recrimination and condemnation. The younger elements thought that the Yorubas were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo people and that whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. You can still see this on Twitter. You have Yoruba leaders. I saw some last week. I'm not going to mention any names because I want to just respect people's ojori. How can you be a leader or a minister? You're Yoruba. And anytime you want to make examples, you have to denigrate your people because you want to make a point. And then you have to compare yourself to Igbos. Some of them hold microphone as pastors, just be talking absolute nonsense. Morikon last week, I'm from Zion. I don't want to mention the states that he mentioned. I'm from Zion. I don't like all this Yoruba thing. Are you dumb? Who is Zion? If you are child, what's your name? Is it Zion there Zion in your name? People are culturally unaware. Just be shouting Bible all over the place. And the Bible you're talking about going to, hey, ma. So they said that the Yorubas were indulging in mutual recrimination and condemnation, and the younger elements thought that the Yorubas were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo. Say we listened to one pastor who said the other day, say, Yoruba people, hold your hair, hold your hair. Let me tell you something. See the Igbo, they used to go out and do something. I'm just talking. But look at these other ones. They are going out to do things because they are not in their home. And they know how they left their home. And there's scarcity back at home. So they have to hustle. People here are hustling, which is why, by the way you see people hustling in Yoruba land, how many of the hustlers you see on the web, on the Forbes list? Why do you have to downgrade yourself to make well, maybe because you are trying to get your customers. Anyway, the point is that even back then in the 1940s, the Yorubas thought they were inferior. And they were inferior because Zeke was actually intentional. Won't go into other things. He used his newspaper to push some things. But I'm going somewhere. Please stay with me. The younger elements saw that the Yorubas were inferior to the go-ahead Igbo people and that whatever might be their past glories, they had become effete and decadent. To cap it all, it was freely bandied about that the Yorubas were no longer capable of leadership in any sphere of life. I thought that it was in the best interest of Nigeria and that the Yorubas should not be reduced to a state of impotence into which they were fast degenerating. They had something which was all their own to contribute to the common pool of Nigerian nationalism and nationhood. I decided, therefore, to do all in my power to infuse solidarity into the disjointed tribes that constitute the Yoruba ethnic group, to raise their morale, to rehabilitate their self-respect, and to imbue in them with a confidence that they are an important factor in the forging of the federal unity of Nigeria. I dare to say that that's the exact same thing we are doing here. Without having to tarnish anybody until you come for me, I'll come for you. You collect. I'm not going to read what Zeke did in 43, but let me go to what Awo then did. We're going to move away from some things very quickly. I wish I could read these things, but because of time. Anyway, on leaving the shores of Nigeria in August 1944, I resolved that I would have nothing to do with politics until I had finished my studies and made some money. Let me jump a little bit. I also resolved that before I again entered into politics, I would see to it that the Yorubas evolved an ethnic solidarity among themselves, just as the Ibibios and the Igbos are done, in order to ensure a strong and harmonious federal union among the peoples of Nigeria. In other words, Awo saw what the Ibibios have done, what the Igbos have done, and then he was inspired to do something. Some clowns will see what you are doing, and they will feel trepidation, and so they have to begin to cry like Egbiri and say, you are tribalistic. Awo did not say that they were tribalistic. He just saw it and was able to copy and build something off of what the people have done. So it says here, in less than a year after I reached the United Kingdom, I set to work to translate my ideas into realities. A group of Yoruba, one second. I'm going to read some of your comments later, please. A group of the Yorubas, mostly students, Dr. Oni Akirele, Chief Abiodun Akirele, barrister at law, and members of the House of Representatives, Mr. Akintola Williams, General Accountant, Chief Ayotunde Rosiji, Federal Secretary of the Action Group and a member of the House of Representatives, and others, and I founded the Yoruba organization in London, named the Egbe Omoduduwa, meaning a society of the descendants of Oduduwa. Now, this is where all my Turanchi is for this purpose. This is where we are going since. It took us a while, Abi. But we're finally here. In view of the hostility and controversy which had marked the birth of the Egbe Omoduduwa, and of the general misunderstanding which had existed ever since about the real intentions of this organization, I reproduce here in full the aims of the Egbe and its methods of approach as set out in its first constitution, which was drafted by me with the collaboration of one of its founders. Now, why did I do all the Turanchi just to get here? To explain that when as a Yoruba person, you say I'm Yoruba and I'm into politics, what you're doing is you should be banking on something like this. This is what OBJ did not have. With all due respect, and as much as I like his work, I think he was a great president to a large extent. But maybe the truth of the matter is not even maybe. The truth is that he doesn't have any political philosophy that is grounded in his Yoruba-ness. That is a fact. And I'm sure he would not mind, because he himself said that all the things you're talking about is tribal politics. This is what the tribal politics, this is how it started in 1945. Take a listen to this. The aims of the association are divided into two categories. Number one, Yoruba land. A, to study fully its political problems. Let me say it like this. A, Yoruba land. Number one, to study fully its political problems, combat the disintegrating forces of tribalism, stamp out discrimination within the group and against minorities, and generally infuse the idea of a single nationality throughout the region. Number two, to study its economic resources, ascertain its potentialities, and advise as to the wisest utilization of its wealth so as to ensure abundance and prosperity for its people. Number three, to plan for the improvement of educational facilities, both in content and extent, to explore the means of introducing mass education promptly and efficiently, and to foster the study of Yoruba language, culture, and history. Number four, to promote the social welfare of Yoruba land, combat the cankerworm of superstition and ignorance, spread the knowledge of medical relief, and stimulate the provision of hospitals, maternity homes, and such like amenities. A, all of this was Yoruba land. Now, B, Nigeria. To cooperate in the fullest measure with other regions to see that the aims set out in A are applied to the whole country. Number two, to aid and encourage similar groups in other regions in every way possible to achieve these ideals. This is the foundation of Yoruba politics. What they wrote in 1945, by the way, they wrote methods of approach, what they were going to do in order to approach their goals. They wrote it down. We're not going to go into it. By the time you look at what they wrote in 1947, after they started everyone to do in Lagos, and then in 48, they went to Ife and then inaugurated it officially. The objectives, right, are always the same. Yoruba, Nigeria, Yoruba, Nigeria. All the way to when they now started the party, Action Group in 1951. And then now at the Action Group near Ferry, it's the same thing. They have plans for Yoruba land, they have plans for Nigeria. And the plan they have for Nigeria is what they have accomplished in Yoruba land to be replicated in other parts of Nigeria. How wouldn't you be proud of that as a Yoruba man? How would you think that is tribal politics? People define tribal politics based on what their own fathers have done and what they are doing, not on us, not based on what we are saying. What we have as our heritage is Afenifere. All of this to say that the idea that Obasanjo was saying in that letter that tribal politics is an assumption that when Yoruba people talk about, pushing the Yoruba agenda is somehow inimical to the growth of Nigeria. That's not true. Let us look at the charter of the Igbos, for instance, and what they wrote in their own conference when they had their meeting. What was it that they were talking about? Maybe I should even read part of it to you so that you understand the difference. That's why I say people judge you sometimes based on their own reality, and it's unfair to them. It doesn't even affect me, to be honest, but it affects the younger ones. That's what we are speaking out. So if you think, why are they always talking? Because we have to do this. Let me read to you what Azikiwe said. By the way, Azikiwe was against Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà, fought vehemently against it. From 1945 that they started in London, the group of Igbo people in London were against Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà. Meanwhile, they were members of Igbo Federal Union, which started in London in 1943. But they were against Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà that started in 1945. By the time they got to Nigeria, Zik was just writing all kinds of things, saying that, I'll read some of the things that Zik wrote about the party. Let me read some of these things here from September 1948. This was from the pilot, September 8. It says, but now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million, by the way, he's using Nigerians to cover for his ethnic jingoism. But now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC, the time has come for real action. Henceforth, the cry must be one of battle against the Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà, its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and downdale, in the streets of Nigeria, and in the residence of its advocates. The Ẹkáàbọ Oòduà is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sade Amadakija has been dismembered. That was it. Talking about a party, a tribal group, what's the word now? An ethnic association. Meanwhile, he was the president of Igbo Federal Union. Go figure. You are the president of Igbo Federal Union, but you're against the existence of Egbe Modudua in Yoruba land. Meanwhile, you are living in Yoruba land, leading an Igbo organization in Yoruba land. The audacity some people have is insane. And it's what you still see in their children. When I say children, I'm not talking about biological children. I'm talking about their race, their ethnicity. That's how they speak. Meanwhile, you are going everywhere and say, oh, I want to be one Nigeria. I want to be... The person who is condemning Yoruba people for having organization, not for trying to destroy Nigeria, just for existing. Let me tell you what he said. The date is not here, so I'm trying to remember. It was Saturday, June 25, 1949. It was in Aba. This is what Zik said. It would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. The martial prowess of the martial prowess of the Igbo nation at all stages of human history is a lie, has enabled them not only to conquer others, but also to adapt themselves to the role of a preserver. The Igbo nation cannot shirk its responsibility. Politically, you have seen with your own eyes how you were disenfranchised by the British. The Igbo nation has never been represented in the Executive Council. Economically, the Igbo nation has labored on, essentially they are the best things in sliced bread and they are supposed to lead the rest of us. Meanwhile, you are against Yoruba people having Yoruba association in Yoruba land, while you are living in Yoruba land, this is an Igbo organization in Yoruba land. And when you look at their own objectives, it's about domination. Look at the objective. It's about the good of our own land and how we can replicate it to other parts of Nigeria. That's what I was saying in 1959. When he went to the north, the thing he kept saying was that he was going to stamp out ignorance. He was going to do exactly what he did in Western region for the entire country, particularly in the north. Read this book now. Read, I mentioned it earlier, Adventures in the Power Book 2, Traverse of Democracy and the Rule of Law. That's what he said. And that's why the northern establishment were against him. Because they said it was going to change the structure, because they were feudalists in their thinking. Talk for another day. They also have their own plenty issues. Again, you have to go back to 1804 to even understand where they're coming from. That's the way they want to organize their own society. It's still like that today. That's why our Majiri schools are not really working. Until when the leaders of the North are ready to get the people educated, no matter how much the federal government invests in our Majiri, nothing will happen. We're just deceiving ourselves. It's a cultural thing. It's not a government, it's not a policy matter. All of that to say this. If you come from a heritage where your fathers had plans for Yoruba people, their own ethnicity, and then they also have plans for the entire nation, good plans to replicate those things, why would you be ashamed to say that, excuse me, please, why would you be ashamed to say that I'm Yoruba and I'm in Nigerian politics? What do you think Yoruba politics really mean? And we should ask Baba, who is saying that it's tribal politics. What did they really think Yoruba politics was about? Do you want good for yourself? Of course. But why would I want evil for myself? I want good for myself. But do I want evil for others? No. So I'm saying all of this to tell you as a Yoruba person, there's nothing bad about saying I stand for my ethnicity. Stop doing all this detribalization nonsense. It means nothing. Because you are living amongst people that they will leech on you and take over what is yours in the name of one Nigeria. They are smart like that. Or if you can use the word smart, can be diabolical in some cases. So I read all this to just respond to that now that Obasanjo said about let us not trivialize Nigerian presidency with tribalism. What does that mean? You're a Yoruba president. Not that you have Tinubu there. Is he not building Sokoto Badagry highway? Is that highway not going to pass through different regions in Nigeria? The Lagos Calabar highway is not passing through different regions in this country. The road is building all over the southeast. It's building massive road construction going on in the southeast now, right? In the north, all over the place is working, right? The nail fund that we have right now, is it just for Yoruba people? It's not everybody across Nigeria. By the way, I think it's not like I think. Northerners take more advantage of nail fund than any other person. Northerners are taking advantage of nail fund. Western, if you are from the Southwest, if not Central, not, particularly Northeast and Northwest, they are taking maximum advantage of NELFund. It's the Southeast that is taking less advantage because they are playing. How can an ethnicity be acting as if they're opposition group? That's their own issue, Shah. They will sort it. The point I'm trying to make is that all these policies are for everybody. He said, okay, you guys have, thank you very much, Mr. Yomi. You guys have this centralization of military installations in Kaduna. Let's decentralize this. So you have in Abakaliki, you have in Oshogbo, you have in different regions of Nigeria right now. All the 6 geopolitical zones have depots. Now they are having more divisions. We're going to have 12 army divisions in Nigeria, recruit 28,000 more army personnel. Is it happening in Yoruba land? What are you seeing? You're literally seeing the Yoruba political philosophy at work. Decentralization, fiscal federalism, devolution of powers. That's what is happening. Why should I not be proud of that? You're having state police. That's from us. And I'm proud to say it. It doesn't mean that you're trying to gloat or anything. It's just to say that it's something to be proud of. Your goal is to do something that will benefit your region, but that will also benefit other regions. I was talking about free education. He's talking about state police. He's talking about development commissions. Why didn't anybody do development commissions in 2014? The report was ready as a 2014. The confab report under Goodluck Jonathan. Why didn't anybody implement it? Jonathan did not implement it. He banged it on if he won the 2015 election, which he lost, so nothing happened. Buhari was there for 8 years, nothing happened. The so-called tribal guy got there and then he made it so that every region has a development commission today. The concept of local government autonomy, what's that about? These are things that you will find us discuss in read the Dawn Commission. Time's low. I'd have loved to read to you. Maybe tomorrow. Thank God we're meeting every day now. Maybe tomorrow. Read the development agenda for Western Nigeria. Read their timeline. Compare to the 1960, is it 1950 or 1960 Western Region plan? Wallahi in Kankanan. The Western Region Development Plan that they had in the 50s, that document is available. Maybe one of these days. And then you read the Dawn Commission. You created Dawn Commission in your region in 2013. Everybody just woke up in 2025. You had a 12-year head start. That's why you have SWDC being able to build stuff, because there's a foundation laid already by Dawn Commission. Why should you not be proud of that as a Yoruba person? Why should people talk down on you and make you feel as if you're a big god because you are proud of who you are? If they don't have such things where they come from, that's their business. And we love everybody, after all. There's some other things that Papa wrote in this book, powerful book, by the way. You should get it. Get his autobiography, it's very important. Everybody should have Papa's autobiography, and then you get his other books, right? But you've got to understand how Nigerian politics works. You love everybody, but you protect your space. The person calling you a bigot and a tribalist, he hates everybody and protects his space. Whenever you see a group saying that this person hates me, this person hates me, this one hates me, ask the person, who are you loving? Who do you love? They don't love anybody. Because if you love people, they will love you back. You have reciprocity at some point. Anyway, I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you that while I respect Baba Obasanjo, I think it's important to begin to push back against the idea that anything that has to do with Yoruba politics is tribalism. And it's derogatory in the sense that they use it like they're just selfish, self-seeking, self-centered, No, we are altruistic as nature. That's our nature. That's the heritage our fathers gave us. And our own duty, by the way, is that we also must not now told the path of, if everybody is selfish, we can also be selfish. We cannot afford to be. And if you say you can afford, let me ask you a question. The people who are selfish, are they better off for it? So which want to do it? You cannot do it. You cannot decide to jettison millennia of growth and development because some people that have decades of history are doing something that you don't like. That'll make you not very smart. So we've got to be smart. We have a heritage to hold on to. And if you do that, then you cannot be a blessing to Nigeria. You can be a blessing to Africa. You can be a blessing to the entire world. But charity always begins at home. Thank you very much for listening to that response. That's my own view of what I read. The details of what they had between themselves, that's for the elders to sort out between themselves. We're going to call it a day now. I know we didn't get to the other news items. I told you that we're probably going to stay on the history thing for a while. So that's what we did. I want to thank everybody who power tapped on TikTok, getting us to 137.5 likes. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Every time you power tap, it helps a lot. I really appreciate it. And to those who shared the live as well, thank you. And those who gave gifts, I see the corals and the roses and the money bag and the hats. Thank you so much, Tidan, and every other person. I saw Tidan a lot of times, so it doesn't mention that name separately. So thank you. It's now 138K likes. Thank you very much. Thank you, sirs and Maz. Let's read some comments before we call it a day. So let's go on YouTube. So someone is pushing back, which is fair. So let's read this comment. Abi Olayiwola on Facebook says, Professor, this professor, I have to go and become professor. Let's read, sir. Professor, I respectfully disagree. That's okay. MQ Abiola being an NPN member doesn't mean he didn't have Yoruba interest at heart. He was one of Yoruba land's most illustrious sons, and a former Alaafin installed him as the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò of Yoruba land. Being in my late 50s, I remember his era quite well. I can share some first-hand experience, some first-hand perspective. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Abi Olayiwola. I really appreciate your submission, but I don't think you got what I was saying. I wasn't saying that MQ Abiola was not after Yoruba interest, although you can debate that. I wasn't even talking about Yoruba interest at all. I was talking about Yoruba ideology, at least Yoruba political ideology, which is essentially the Awo school of politics. Now, again, let me quickly say something. I am not saying that if a person doesn't belong to the Awoist group, the person cannot represent Yoruba people. There are many Yoruba people who represent Yoruba people. There are many people even in NCNC at the time. T.S. Benson, there are many people, Akifo Shile, many people in NCNC who did not send Awo. They are still Yoruba. But the philosophy they operated with wasn't something that we generally, what's the word now, that we use as a people in our region, that was tried and tested, that we're now looking at, applying in other parts of the country. The fact that they were not with Awolowo does not make them less Yoruba, just to be clear. It doesn't even mean that they don't have Yoruba interest at heart, but I can assure you there is not one, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong on this one. There is not one that you can tell me that the ideology was Yoruba in outlook. Most of the time, they're going to have to go with the political party's ideology if the party has an ideology. It wasn't like they were really okay. What did Obasanjo do in office that you think? I mean, we read it now. What did Yoruba elders ask for? Let me read it one more time so that you understand where I'm coming from. Just to be clear, I agree with what you're saying that just because somebody doesn't work with, he didn't say that, but that's my own deduction. Just because the person is not with Awo does not mean that they're not Yoruba. I agree with that one because I know some people also go to the extreme and say, oh, you have to be with Awo. You don't have to be with Awo. However, we all know that the philosophy that we are using that has worked, which is still working, don't go along, is actually from Papa. Egani ẹ. Ibo ni page yẹn náà, mo fẹ́ kà nǹkan tí àwọn Yorùbá, àwọn bàbá yẹn sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ ń gbà tán lọ bá Obasanjo. You can now ask yourself, any politician who is Yoruba, by the way, who has become, who has gotten some level of influence in politics, who has done this and hasn't come from that group. Give me a second, please. I'm going to read that to you. The Afenifere, I'm reading battle lines from Chief Olusegun Osoba. The Afenifere and AD leadership were not going to give their heart and soul to support Obasanjo's second-term ambition without extracting some major political commitment from him. Now, remember, AD Afenifere is the Fourth Republic iteration of AG Afenifere Egbemojuduwa. It's the same thing, the same spirit, it's the same family line. Do you understand? Mumbo, I'll read you, sir. I'll read your comment. So, side down, down alone. The Afenifere and AD leadership were not going to give their heart and soul to support Obasanjo's second term ambition without extracting some major political commitments. So what were the things they extracted? The conditions presented to Obasanjo, amongst others, were, listen, and tell me if anybody who doesn't belong to the AWO group has ever pushed this since even the Third Republic, but particularly in this Fourth Republic, even the Second Republic, but particularly in this Fourth Republic. So let's get into this. The conditions presented to Obasanjo, amongst others, were, number one, the restructuring of the Nigerian Federation. Number two, devolution of power, including moving some items from the exclusive to the concurrent list. And then ensuring fiscal federalism. And then he said Obasanjo was to organize a credible and transparent national census. Number five, merit must be followed alongside federal character and quota system in the recruitment to federal positions across the country. Now tell me, which other group, bloc, ethnic bloc, political bloc in Nigeria has presented this amongst others as consistently presented this as a goal and objectives in the last 30, 40 years? Apart from Afenifere, AD, UPN, it's the same spirit, like I said, AG, Action Group, to UPN, Unity Party of Nigeria, to some people in SDP, and you have PDP. Someone says North. Of course not. The North is consistent, by the way, but not this way. The North also has their own outlook. See, every region, I've said it several times, all of us, we are the direct product of the prevailing political ideologies in our regions from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We are literally the product of those ideologies. If you disagree, it's okay. Just sit down and think about it. The North also has their own stance. They have what they want. And this is not about whether it's good or bad. It's just the point is just that every region gets to have their own. Why should it be tribalistic or tribalism when I decide to talk about my own as a Yoruba man? That's the point. And you can be that, be Yoruba, and be Nigerian at the same time. But I understand you. Abiola was a Yoruba man, but he wasn't necessarily pushing a Yoruba plan. However, again, I remember saying also that by 1993, things had changed. 92, 93, before the election. So NPN days were 79 to 83. Oh, this was 10 years later. So you also have to be careful with the timelines. By 92, 93, the Yoruba leaders had moved around him. Although in the beginning, they didn't want to work with him, to be clear, because of some of the activities of 83, 79. But, details. Anyway, by 92, 93, they began to work with him. So at that point, you can say, he was thinking about Yoruba interest, but he didn't get to accomplish that, sadly. But thank you very much for your... Okay, so it continues, Mr. Abe on Facebook. Remember that Tinubu, whom we are all praising now, first came into the limelight by opposing the annulment of MK Abiola's election. That doesn't mean that Abiola was the one who taught him how to run politics now. At the time that MKO was running for presidency, Tinubu also was a senator. And you also have to remember that Tinubu is connected to MKO. You can never, you can't even deny that or controvert it. However, you also have to remember that there's a woman, and we don't give her enough credit. Maybe one day we'll have a session, and when I'm discussing, one day I'm going to discuss this woman called Abibatu. No. I want to discuss a woman called Alimoto Pelewura. When you get to Alimoto Pelewura, these are the women. She was the market women leader in Lagos in the days of Herbert Macaulay, 1930s, 1940s. Alimoto Pelewura. She was a fish seller. She was the leader of the Market Women Association in Lagos. But she had a deputy. And I don't think we connect that deputy well with where Tinubu is today. That deputy is Abibatu Mogaji. That's the woman who adopted Tinubu as her son. She has been in policy since that time, about Macaulay period. And she was one of the people pushing for Awolowo in Lagos. Abibatu Mogaji, because eventually she became the Market Women Association leader. So there's her own angle and an influence on her son, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that you can't just push away because you want to force MKO. MKO at best is based on relationship, not like a political ideology flows from MKO to Tinubu now. No. Unless, of course, you're talking about relationship, which is also very important, by the way. MKO had something. He had this network across the country, regardless of where you're from, which is what Tinubu also, has. So you can say there's a, maybe they learned from each other, or maybe learned from him in that way. Maybe I don't even know if he learned from him, but it's not MKO that made Tinubu what he became. There are many factors. And I think maybe we should spend some time maybe we should have a session, because see, there are people amongst us, men, women. You may never go into politics. You may never become a governor, House of Rep member, president. You may never even like that kind of thing. But maybe the person actually for budget. And one person that you should read about is Abibatu Mogaji. These are quiet people. You wouldn't know, if not that, market women, market leader. People the kind of influence they have. I mean, back in the day, these guys will organize protests against the British colonial government. Alimoto Pelewura, of course, with our assistant, Abago Mogaji, you had Babat Macaulay. They were pushing against the government. Ibo Jinodo says MKO is not a core politician. Yes. Tinubu is more a politician than MKO now. MKO could not even list. I was going to say about how. MKO was, up until the early 90s, they were still telling MKO to run. MKO was like, he didn't even know. MKO was in politics, not like a politician, really. He was there, I was like the money bag. They were making decisions. Of course, you have to also be involved in how to help your own business, which is sensible, but it wasn't, you can't even compare his politicking, if you use that word, to Tinubu's. But that doesn't change the fact that, he was a Yoruba man and that he did well in his own time. Just a few more comments before we go. Emmy Styles on YouTube says, keep it up, you are opening the eyes of Yoruba people. Thank you, sir. Okay, I don't want to read the things about Igbos here, please. Thank you, Adiola Sonjola Adele. Thank you, sir. So I hope to get a chance to speak one day. If you want to speak on the platform, you can come on TikTok, or you can send me a message on Telegram, letting me know that you want to speak, and then I will call you, so you'll be able to talk to everybody. So there's an opportunity to speak very soon. Once I don't like giving my WhatsApp, because my WhatsApp, I am on WhatsApp, but Telegram is a bit more coded. But anybody can download it, by the way. Just please call, and then I can bring you up. I don't think Mr. Abe understands me. He says here, sir, Saeed Impojo, you're in your late 50s, sir, while you may disagree with MK Abiola's political stance, his appeal resonated across all ethnic groups in Nigeria. I acknowledge that, which is true. In fact, he secured a higher percentage of the vote in the Southwest than any Yoruba presidential candidate before or since. I agree with you, sir. Surpassing even Obafemi Awolowo, I agree with you 100%. All this thing you're saying, 100% you are correct. I'm with you. And I mean, nothing will change his influence. And we're glad, by the way, that June 12 is now regarded as Democracy Day in Nigeria. That's because of his sacrifice. And I mean, we can all sit down and speak English. That man paid the ultimate price, for his mandate, and that, regardless of his stance, has my respect any day, anytime. But it was larger than life, and it was accepted all over the country. When I said people should come up, fewer people came up. Now I want to end. I'm seeing requests, so let's do it this way. Because it's almost 9, I was supposed to end by 8. I'll bring you up, but please keep it short. If you can make it like 2 minutes, I would appreciate it. So I'm going to bring up the 3 people who have sent a request: Bumblebee, Prof, and Villa Pip. So let's start with Bumblebee. But please, let's keep it short so I can run. Yeah.
Prof.
Yes, sir.
I just had to come up to add something small. Yes, I'll keep it under 1 minute, 30 seconds.
No, you don't have to rush 1 minute though.
Okay, so I will tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth. All these teachings is a wake-up call for we Yoruba people. And you mentioned the fact that you're from a royal house, and I think I've also mentioned that I'm from a royal family as well in Osun State. To be honest, having that sense of ownership, you can't have a feeling that someone is ruining your father's heritage, gbogbo iṣẹ́ tí bàbá wa ti ṣe sílẹ̀ kó má bàjẹ́ ká dẹ̀ máa lajú ká máa wò kí tàlùbọ́ dẹ̀ máa kó wọ̀ lójú ayé wa. You will feel deep down within yourself. And in fact, I was one of the people that started speaking up. I'm not really a social media person to say, but when I see people, when you see people moving crazy in social media, on social media platform, so if you're a Yoruba person and you see them talking down on you, they're trying to denigrate you and your children, even if you don't feel connected to Yoruba heritage. How are your own children going to hold their head up when they are of age? They will feel less than normal, which is one of the things that those people did to the minorities in their region. And today you see some of them, they can't even speak up in political gatherings and everything. So we need to be aware of what is happening in our community, and we need to speak up. Let's not do all this Yoruba speak up. It's part of our heritage. So thank you for enlightening us.
Thank you very much, sir.
And
thank you, sir.
We'll keep speaking of
Eshe. So let's have Prof. Good evening, Prof. We are happy to have you.
Sorry, I didn't know you were about closing. I was in and house. Then I was there briefly when you were talking about that debacle between the whole Igbo Federal and Yoruba Federal Union and all this stuff. And
I didn't even mention Yoruba Federal Union though. That Zik helped create Yoruba Federal Union to work against. I didn't even mention that one.
Yeah, they created it, and then they carry some. Sorry, who is that? Yeah. Then they carry some
Yoruba people
that
create a parallel organization.
And Igbo man carry you, and they even carry the picture was there at race course where he was setting up, Federal Union for you, So, but one of the things I want to point out is I think one of the projects doing ones I'm less busy is, we need to put together a coherent history of this country. I think one of the things we've had is that there's no coherence, and I know it's a big ask. It's yes, you can make attempts. I know it's tough, right? But we need a coherent history of Nigeria. So there's a way we take things in bits and pieces. You see, it's here and there. But one place where it has failed is that we've not been able to do traceability of those things. Let me give you an example. Over the weekend, I was reading the interview of Babi Asika, who was the Ogo one appointed as the governor of East Central State, right? And one of the things Babi Asika said, which, apart from what happened at the University of Ibadan, because, as I know people have been saying Professor Falola's video, but which is the truth. The civil war was planned at the University of Ibadan, in the living room of Kenneth Dike.
That's the part that Professor Falola did not add.
In the living room of Kenneth Dike. And Ukpabi Asika also gave some context on it. But one of the things he said that is fascinating was that the 1951 conference, the McPherson Constitutional Conference, he said the Igbo leaders came there with one single objective, that they alone have the right to rule Nigeria. That was a generally agreed position of Igbo rulers, that other Nigerians do not have the right and they must not be allowed. This was at the 1951 Constitution. That's an Igbo man saying it. He was the first governor of East Central. that they came to that conference and the belief was that they alone should rule this country. Oh, because, and their reason, oh, they've accepted the white man's way. Oh, they are educated. Oh, they don't have king. They are more like the British. So that was their sole belief when they came to that conference. Now, it's a part of there. And then you see the next connecting tissue will be from Emmanuel Ayondele's book, right? Which you and I have read, where he also went into this issue, right? That thinking, that was a foundational thinking for these folks in politics. Like they have the only people that must rule this country. They're not saying collaborative, oh, they are saying everybody, every other person must not rule. Who is the black sheep? We're saying East Central. He was in Central during Biafra. The man was talking of 1951.
It doesn't mean that East Central existed in 51. He's saying what happened in 51 when
exactly. We said the man was governor and he gave interview and was talking about what happened in 51. So you saw that in the letter they wrote, right? When Ironsi was head of state. Remember, they left, and will probably confirm it. A lot of them, they all resigned and left for Eastern Nigeria. And also, I have some papers from Nnamdi Azikiwe that Azikiwe also confirmed it, right? The Igbo professors at University of Ibadan resigned and left University of Ibadan as of June, right? There's even no program at that time, right? They left. Why? Because the West and the North rejected the unitary system. And for them, they said, no, Nigeria cannot exist without that. They can't live in a Nigeria that does not accept that, right? In their own perspective. And in that letter, if you remember, they said in that letter that, look, yes, people are complaining that we are taking all the position, right? They say, oh, wait, but that they are doing Nigerians a favor. I mean, I don't know if they said they are doing us a favor by nepotism, because they are the only people in the country that can take the country forward. That's so we should not complain that the Yorubas do not have the right to be there. The Hausas do not have the right to be there. They are the only ones that can take the country forward, so that it is not nepotism. They didn't say there's no nepotism. They said, yes, there's nepotism, but we are doing it because we are the only people that can move this country forward. That thinking led to the first coup, right? So when you look at Nigeria, on one side, you have some people, that believe that it's their God-given right, as you have read from Azikiwe, to say, and then they took that mindset to 1951, took them to 1966, took everything. And then on the other side, the other people that believe this country is the estate of their great-grandfather too, right? And that was the clash of 1966. The problem we have is that you now have a very big group in the center who is like a child that has this very beautiful toy that everybody wants, but he doesn't know. He's very, very stupid with his toy. And that's the Yorubas, right? It has no objective. It has nothing. Its people are usually very, very splintered, right? They are always very splintered. They will join the people that wants to destroy them. One group wants to annihilate you because they believe it's their estate of that. It was promised to them by the British. The other group wants to annihilate you because they believe it's their God-given right. They have the intelligence, right? So, but we've not been able to identify all of that. So, again, it's good we are doing this, but our people need to be connecting this tissue. You will still see some of our people repeating that nonsense today. If you give this country to an Igbo man, that is why you have to give it to. If you give it to an Igbo man, this country will move forward. Really? Like, you don't know this is Erenvokism that has been there, that certain people have said that it is their right to be, and you're also saying the same thing. So, yeah, we still have our modern day Yoruba Federal Union. They are the Yoruba, but thank you for doing this. Hopefully, people we listen. You are very patient. People like me are not.
Thank you so much, Prof. I really appreciate you coming up, and I mean it's a delight to listen to you. By the way, give me South nationalism here. It's with you now. You should please check your mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will discuss some of this. See, in context of that coin, it's a major thing. I think Remy Adekoya talked about this in his thesis. How Zeke and Yolaya, you're in Yoruba land. You're the president of the Igbo Federal Union. You heard Yoruba people organize Egbe Modua in Yoruba land. You are against Egbe Modua in Yoruba land. You then gather some Yoruba people to create a parallel organization called Yoruba Federal Union against their fellows. And they will also do it because, as far as they are concerned, they are one Nigeria. You are also one Nigeria. I want there. Not knowing that you, whether they know or not, I don't even careful about that. You have a plan to dominate all of them. We have to wake up. We have to wake up. And interestingly, when you read the Macpherson Chatham speech,
you know there was an incident of when I think in the Tribune or Sketch, or I don't know which of the whole newspaper, where there was an article written, I think it was in the 50s or so, and one phrase was used about the great Yoruba tribe. West African pilot and Zeke say, "Oh, that is Nazism." When you start saying great, they ran big campaign on it, and then in the same edition, they called the Edo people Great Benin. So when people say, why are you calling this? Those ones are really great. Those ones are really great. But you people, when you say great, it is Nazism. I'll send it right up to you. You can never attach. You must never attach great to your name. When you attach it, it said it is Nazism. But yes, but then it went. I said, oh yeah. Yes, the Benin's are great. Yeah, they are really, really great. Yeah. So Yoruba bot is a disease. Honestly, if you have a child that is Yoruba bot,
it is well. See, all of us, we have to grow out of this pandering and trying to please people. Like I always say, it doesn't mean you hate anybody. It doesn't mean you have anything against anybody. It just means you know how to protect your home. It's similar to how you lock your doors at night. It doesn't mean you hate your neighbor. You're just protecting yourself. It's a basic concept. You know, all this time we are the same. We are all one. I'm doing videos recently. I did one earlier today. We are not the same, and that's okay. We are not fighting anybody. We are all okay. All right. God will bless everybody. But there are things that people have done that, and you know what? The funny thing is that people are competing with themselves because our own back compete at a you know. But it is well. Thank you very much for being part of today's session, and thanks to Professor Remy and also Bumblebee for coming up to share their thoughts. By the way, if you're joining us for the first time, we do have these sessions every weekday, Mondays to Fridays, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So we'll be here tomorrow. We'll start playing music here on TikTok, and then we'll join. Or then those of us on YouTube will then, be part of it much later. So we listen to music and some replays. It also helps with our activity on TikTok. That's how the app works. That's why we start on TikTok first, but we'll bring everybody up much later. So right now we're streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. But it's been lovely having this conversation with you. I want to thank everybody who has part-tapped, who has liked, who has written in the comment section. You've typed. All these things help us with engagement. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, whether on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, everywhere. Thank you so much for being here. And those who gave gifts as well. Olore, I saw Olore giving some gifts earlier. Thank you. Thanks to everybody, whether I gave a rose, a coin, several coins, coral. I saw some gifts here last week. I think it was still done. Someone gave me dragon. The other person gave me kitten. Looks like a lion. Thank you. God bless you. Real good. As Yoruba people, be proud of your heritage, love everybody, and as Nigerians, be proud of this country. You can't, by the way, I've been seeing news recently again, we're just cursing out Nigerians, but you want to lead the country, it's not going to happen. But for those of us who believe in this country, believing in Nigeria does not stop you from conserving your space and protecting your heritage. Let's protect what is ours and do better than our fathers, not repeat their mistakes, because we can learn from them. Let's do that. All right. Thank you very much for being here today. Before we go, like we always do, we're going to listen to our anthems, the Nigerian anthem and the Yoruba anthem, and then we'll call it a day, to be here again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So please join us tomorrow for another great session. We might do more news tomorrow. I hear some things are happening right now, so we'll have some news tomorrow. So I might alternate, news. Sometimes we concentrate on history, sometimes we concentrate on news. But the point is for us to have a great time, learning together. I'm also learning as you learn. All right. Prince 7 says, when is the daughter coming back from sabbatical? He will be back soon. He comes around once in a while. Some things came up. That's why he's not as regular. But we will see him from time to time. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Before we go, we're going to have our anthems, the Nigerian anthem and Yoruba anthem. Here's the Nigerian anthem. Please sing along. By now, we should all know the lyrics. If you don't know the lyrics, please download the lyrics. Sing along so we can all learn our Nigerian anthem. Take a listen, please.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. The tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigeria, all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or battle, and this we count as gain, to hand unto our children a banner without stain. God of creation, when these are what we want, help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. With peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Nigeria may be blessed. Iṣẹ́ wa fúnlẹ̀ wa, fún ilẹ̀ ìbí wa, ká gbéga, ká gbéga, ká gbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ ni pé bá ti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ mọ́. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká jọlá. Ìṣọ̀kan àtòmìnira ni ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire, ká tó ohun tó dára. Ọmọ òdùn dìde, bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀. Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀. Ìmọ́lẹ̀ wo ni wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá máa gbèrú sí lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́ o. Nàìjíríà náà ò ní dàrú. Ohun tabadáwọlé ó máa yọrí sí rere lágbára Ọlọ́run. Àtàwa, àtọmọ, àtaya, àtọkọ, àtẹbí, àtará, and Bola Bruce Sirawa Lagbara Ọlọ́run. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God cause His face to shine upon you. May the work of your hands be blessed, and may God bless Nigeria, our country, and Yoruba land, our nation. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. Somebody asked earlier, how do we spread this? Please, we have content on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can just share, share, just share. You can just take a video, share, share it with the link, put it on WhatsApp. Let's just learn together. So just share. That's the primary way we can all support. Let's just share. And also, you can also support financially. All right. We're supposed to put up account details. I need money, even though I don't always put it up. I don't usually remember. This is one of the reasons I miss a doctor. A doctor always forced me to do it. But hopefully tomorrow I'll remember. But I would remember sometime this week we'll put. I don't like putting up every time, to be honest. But doesn't mean we don't need money. Money also helps to have this session daily. A lot of things goes into this. Maybe one of these is I'll take a picture of this space where I am right now. I'm surrounded by all kinds of gadgets, and it costs money to get it going. We're also working on our studio project. We want to move very soon. Like, I want to be able to have sessions where you'll not be hearing Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Okay, we're going to get another place, get it padded, and all of those things. So we're working on a number of things. Support us however you can. You can reach out to me, right, at Busuyo Race on Telegram. You can reach out to me on any platform, Facebook, Twitter. Just send me a message. I will respond. All right. So those are the two things you can do to help. Also, we're having a summit coming up very soon. Starting in September, we'll be having monthly physical meetings. I've not been talking about that as well because I want us to, I think it was Olowoduru who mentioned it, and I think it's very smart. I want to try and get something sorted, and then we'll begin to give you exact details. If it's at Fellow or Joba Lafeshio, Ati Mojoba and Sin. I say September, but Ati Mojoba and Sin, so Ati Mojo. But there's one more thing we need to get sorted so I can give you definite information about it. So that way you can also support what we are doing. Thank you very much. May God bless you. May God bless the work of your hands. May God bless your family. May God bless, like I always say, our country, Nigeria, and our nation, Yoruba land. Do have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Have a great night, people. God bless you, sirs and mas. Udaro.